Hey, have you ever been so smart your brain blasts turn into deadly swordplay? Have you ever wanted to live out that blade-swinging, spell-slinging, master of martial and magic power fantasy that is sure to send your DM into an actual rage? Well, congratulations! You might be a blade singer. But what is a blade singer, you ask? Well, don't worry, Papa's here to tell you. Remember that one scene from Sherlock Holmes where RDJ just straight up rocks a dude by combining some cool karate with the power of raw intellect?
Discombobulate.
Well, guess what, my guy? That's you now. By taking this subclass at second level of Wizard, you gain proficiency with light armor, a one-handed weapon of your choice, and most importantly, the Blade Song, which comes with a whole suite of buffs, including a 10-foot addition to your walking speed, advantage on acrobatics checks, you can add your intelligence mod to your concentration checks, and the coup de grace, you can add that same intelligence mod to your AC. Oh yeah, and not only can you brain blast twice a day, you're still a wizard, with all the 7 million spells that a wizard can learn. In short, you're pretty much busted. Let's talk about how insane just the AC buff from Bladesinger is for a second. If you play a basic standard human with no variant, take the standard array and use your 10 starting gold to buy some leather armor, you can set your AC at 16. Now add the first level spell Mage Armor and you've already jumped up to 18, and in combination with Shield, your effective AC is 23. Change your starting race to, I don't know, a turtle? You start with a base AC of 17, making that a 20 with the Blade Song and a 25 with a Shield. For comparison, an Ancient Red Dragon's AC is only a measly 22, like a plebeian, and you're only level f***ing 2! If you roll your stats and are able to get that intelligence to 20 at level 4, you can feasibly skyrocket your AC so high that basically the only way a regular creature can do damage to you is to roll a nat 20 every attack, which will definitely make your DM want to kiss themselves. Mwah! What's that? You want to know more? Being virtually untouchable wasn't enough for you? Oh, don't worry, I get it. Not only do you get the wizard ability to just straight up copy entire spellbooks, pretty much dissuading your DM from ever letting you fight another wizard, and arcane recovery, making sure you never run out of cool shit to do, at 5th level you get access to haste. Haste was made for Blade Singers. Not only do you get another +2 to AC, an extra action to run, swing, or do kickflips or something, Jesus Christ, you're so goddamn fast, you also get to double your speed, which at this point should give you 80 feet per round, and then you get advantage on dex saving throws, because of course you do, baby. If you ever wanted to be the genetic love child in a weird orgy between Jimmy Neutron, Puss in Boots, and Sonic the Hedgehog, this is exactly how it is done. Oh yeah, we're only level 5, boys. Grab Fireball. At level 6 you get another swing with your sword, making that 2 basic attacks and 3 with haste. But wait, you're a blade singer, and you can't be satisfied with just a regular smack, because you can substitute one of those attacks with a cantrip, meaning you can smack smack firebolt, booming blade smack smack, use your imagination. You could stand 120 feet away, use your first attack to take out an enemy, and then the second to point at the big boss on the other side of the room, cast message, and talk mad shit. Be a nuisance. Or take Thunderclap, smack him twice in the face, then turn around and clap those fat ass cheeks together for the ultimate disrespect. Now, let's say you've somehow not become a god by level 9 by choosing the subclass. Well, baby, welcome to level 10. At level 10, your Blade Song enters its crescendo, music joke, with the Song of Defense. Now, if this ability doesn't make your DM throw his dice directly in your face, you're doing it wrong. By expending a spell slot and a reaction, you get to just absorb damage equal to 5 times the slot you used. Meaning the one time your DM finally gets to hit you, you can just stick up your middle finger and reduce that damage to nothing. Fireball? Lightning bolt? Any AoE? Guess what, loser? You done, baby! You see, playing a Blade Singer is all about looking at all the wizard's weaknesses, and then just choosing to ignore them. What's that, level 11 already? When you get here, you can pick up Tasha's otherworldly guise to become the visage of a f***ing god. You still get a +2 to AC, but by sacrificing your extra action, you can become immune to a bunch of damage and conditions, sprout wings and fly, and use your intelligence modifier for attack and damage rolls with your sword. Is this how Jesus felt? Was this why he was walking on water and shit? Just to show off? Finally, we get to level 14, and you get the Song of Victory. This allows you to add your intelligence modifier to the damage of your melee attacks. Did you hear me? Add it. Meaning if you pop Tasha's, you're adding not 5, but 10 damage to every swing. How'd you get that smart? This is so good, it's silly. If your DM is cool and likes cool magic items like me, or gives you the downtime to craft your own cool stuff, your Bladesinger can become so busted you barely need to even waste a spell slot. Not on these peasants, you've ascended. That can't be it, right? Well, it's f***ing not! By level 18, you can pick Shield as a mastered spell, meaning you never have to expend a spell slot to cast it. By this time, if your AC isn't pushing 30 or more at all times, sorry, you gotta brain blast harder. For your second level mastered spell, pick up Mirror Image for a constant buff, making you even harder to hit, or Misty Step to bounce around the battlefield. Just make sure that whatever you cast, also throw up the double birds as you do it, just to be extra annoying. And then, if you're lucky, you get to Wizard level 20. Now at this point, you've probably defeated a god, eaten a Tarrasque by turning it into a cupcake, and literally frozen over the 9 hells. But, you know what? Why not add a free haste or fireball to cast each day on top of that? Or to be a major dick, make it counterspell. One of the things I love best about the Blade Song is your ability to flavor it. You don't even technically need a blade to start the Blade Song. The Blade Song is a state of mind, baby. So you can use the book's explanation of a sweet martial arts sword dance, or those weird tattoos Astrid and Adolwolf had in Critical Role, or fuck it. For you, the Blade Song could be your character phasing through reality to gain a speed boost, or the sound of rocket shoes you build. It can literally be whatever you want. So if you like being untouchable, weaving in and out of combat, slinging rad spells, and being an all-around pain in the ass for your DM to deal with, guess what? You might be a Bladesinger.
It's alive! You know who this is?
No, who is this?
Toto? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
And hello, Internet. We are here, the game to rock your socks off. Hello, Russell.
Greetings and salutations. How are we today?
We are good. We're ready. We are prepared for our episode 38 show on pre-show prep. That's a tongue twister.
Right.
Anyway, if you're just joining us, we are a tabletop talk show and podcast brought to you by Dungeon Studios. We go beyond live play, dive deep into every topic from session zeros to campaign heroes. With lively debates, thoughtful analysis, and plenty of laughs, our weekly podcast is the perfect companion for any D&D fan. Like Avery, who's already here in the chat with us. Hey, Avery. We stream live and interact.
Helen is in there too.
Oh, yes. Hi, Helen. We stream live and interact with our chat on Facebook every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, and 2 p.m. New Zealand time. Yep. So, and Upright Man is with us too. It sounds like we got a full house tonight.
Yay. Awesome.
So, yes, as I mentioned previously, tonight's show is on pre-show prep. And I want to preface this by making sure that everyone knows this is not just for DMs. As a player, I definitely have a pre-show prep routine. So I think that there are some things players can take away from this show. So yeah, we'll cover some topics for players and DMs, what you guys can or should do to prepare for in-person games and online games. We've got it all covered.
All covered. Everything.
All covered.
The whole lot. Yep.
So
and we're prepared too. There you go.
It sounds like we're prepared, right?
Sounds like it.
I can't wink. I'm trying. I closed both eyes. If you rewind it, just watch. I just closed both eyes, guys. I suck at winking.
If we're really lucky, we'll go through this episode without any cameras going down or any technical difficulties. So
right. All right. What's Upright Man says? That sign that says roll high or die trying perfectly represents an attitude that makes me throw makes me throw people out of the game. Too many think that's a good strategy. Sorry for the rant. All right.
Ranting's what we do.
That is what we do. We rant and we rave. So, all right. Well, let's get this show on the road. I don't have anything for Retcon Rewind. I didn't know if you did, Russell.
Retcon Rewind? No, not this week. I don't think so. Don't have any. I never take anything back, really.
Right.
I have no regrets.
No regrets.
Keep going. Doesn't matter what you say. You just got to be committed to it.
Yep. All right. Well, then good. Let's commit to the rest of this show. And for those of you who are watching us live, I want to thank you guys for joining us. And if I should look at the camera, I'm thanking you guys. And if you know anyone who would enjoy our show, please share it with them. If you find our show on various social media platforms, please like, share, subscribe, all of that fun stuff so that we can grow and continue to make more shows like this for you. All right. Moving on.
Right.
All right. Guess what? I have a couple things for nerd news. One, I mentioned last week, it was a very short notice, but we were looking for voice actors over here at Dungeon Studios. And we just made our first voice acting roster announcement earlier today. I believe it was today. So I just wanted to say congratulations in the case that they are on the show listening. Congratulations to Ben Q, Halvdan, Sriracha, Mystic Monkey, and WCL. They are now a part of our voice acting crew. Very exciting. And that is for the Fables from the Forgotten project, which I'm very excited for when that comes out. That'll be really cool. All right. Let's see. So moving on, the next thing that I want to talk about, crazy that this just happened over the weekend. Remember last week we were talking about Wizards of the Coast being pro AI and DM's Guild being anti-AI, kind of being on those sides of the fence anyway. Right. So over the weekend, if you happen to follow any of those, news sources for Wizards of the Coast, you probably heard about the fact that they got caught with some AI art in an upcoming book of theirs, the Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants. Yes. The original posts, I think, with the illustrations might have been taken down. I think they were on Twitter. But there's various screenshots of them you can find online. And basically the artist, I'm probably going to hatchet his or her name up, Ilya Shkipi? That's what it sounds like. Anyway, Ilya Shkipi apparently
we'll call
used...
him Skippy for short.
Skippy. I like that. That's much better. Poor Skippy used AI tools to polish, so he says, I think it's a he, says, said he polished...
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter.
Okay, I think that we're live again, folks. Hopefully you can find us again. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened, and to be honest, I don't know where my computer stopped or what happened. I was just talking, and it wasn't until I saw something happen on the chat on Facebook that I went, oh, apparently I'm stuck or we're stuck. So we had to restart. Please find us again. So I feel like maybe I have to start from the beginning. Because what's the last thing you remember? What was I saying?
Well, we were just talking about Skippy.
Okay, we were talking about Skippy. Did I already start reading the official announcement from D&D?
I don't think you did. No, not the official announcement.
Okay. Boy, I was just going on and on. All right, let's fix this so that if it happens again, I can see that we're stuck. Yeah, and Facebook. Good. Okay, we're getting our viewers back. I'm so sorry, everyone. Thank you, Avery, for finding us. Thank you, Upright Man.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay, good. I was wondering where we got to. He said I had just got to start reading the official announcement. So I'm just going to restart there, and hopefully everyone comes back. This is what happens. See, this is why it's great to be prepared, but also be prepared for the unexpected. Here we
Right.
go.
Yes, that's the
Starting
lesson
over with
today.
that is the lesson. And just roll with the punches. All right. So the official announcement from D&D after this came out was today we became aware that an artist used AI to create artwork for the upcoming book Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants. We have worked with this artist since 2014, and he's put years of work into books we all love. While we weren't aware of the artist's choice to use AI in the creation process for these commissioned pieces, we have discussed with him, and he will not use AI for Wizards' work moving forward. We are revising our process and updating our artist guidelines to make clear that the artist must refrain from using AI art generation as part of their art creation process for developing D&D art. Here's where I started going on a rant. I was in my groove and then realized that you guys weren't here with me.
We were missing. Yeah.
Was that there are a few keywords here that with Wizards of the Coast, we've learned lately that we have to read between the lines and really pick things apart. And so there were a couple things that I noticed. Okay, one was we will not use AI for Wizards work moving forward, which did kind of have me question, like, so they're not going to redo any of the art that was probably already AI generated. They're just going to like, meh, it's passable or it's not noticeable. We're not going to call this out. We're going to keep this here.
Right. Recall all the books.
Right. We have discussed. Okay.
What could they possibly do?
So they're updating their artist guidelines to make clear that artists must refrain from using AI art generation as part of their art creation process for developing D&D art. They did not say that they would exclude using AI for anything else, right? Like probably the generation of adventures and things like that. I don't know. It's just very interesting considering what came up last week in our news that Wizards of the Coast, I think, is definitely pro AI. I mean, they have to be because that's what they're leaning into for the VTT stuff. I don't know. This is going to be a weird line where they're like, where will Wizards of the Coast draw the line for AI? Is it just AI art just because they got caught, or will there be other lines that they will draw?
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, they're going to need AI. They're already fucking with AI as far as like story generation and game generation and replacing DMs and so on.
Right.
So, I mean, at this point, I'm not particularly concerned as far as AI DMs are sort of going. I mean, they haven't kind of reached a point yet where they can role play or even be consistent. So, when the AI learns to act and can sort of generate emotions on the screen and what have you, okay, then I'll at that point, I'll sit back and say, fuck it, I'm not DMing anymore. I'm going to be a player.
Yeah. And sorry, this is the other thing. I knew there was another word that I honed in on was the word refrain. So they're not... They're using the word we're refraining from using it, which means that is they're going to selectively choose when it's okay and when it's not. They're not banning it. They're not saying it's bad. They're just going to refrain from using it when they get caught, I think.
Right.
So just very funny.
That sounds about right. Yeah, refrain.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay.
Cool story.
Yeah, I just thought that was really, and not really much more to dig into about it other than that. I just thought if you go online, look for the pictures, they had a few wolves that had human feet. They had a few characters that had the really weird, like you said, wonky, like 3-4 finger thing.
How did they miss this though? It's like, I mean, I make a lot of AI art.
Yeah.
And I select the pictures that I post anywhere, if I post anything that's AI, I've looked at it and I've checked it to see that it actually looks reasonable. I mean, what did this person spend like 5 minutes? They were like, oh, I'm gonna need to make my cash this week from Wizards of the Coast. You'd think someone that actually had a fucking job as an artist working for Wizards of the Coast would bother to check their work.
Right, some quality control at least.
What the hell were they thinking? And that just went through the whole process and nobody noticed.
Yep.
Like, what? Maybe the artist doesn't even. I mean, does the artist exist? Maybe there's only one person working at Wizards of the Coast now.
Yeah, you never know.
They do everything. Them and Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and Midjourney. Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing. Is I mean, well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We talked about that before in a previous show where I mean anybody now with access to Chat GPT and Midjourney could probably crank out a few of these real quickly, and then it'll just be a matter of the market being flooded with, you know, crap, various ranges, you know, of crap to good stuff that people are actually checking.
It's interesting to me because a few years ago, I was very much in the film scene, and I was, making movies, and I went to film school. I did that twice, in fact, and I wanted to be a filmmaker, film director, and there was a point in the sort of early 2000s when the digital revolution happened. And suddenly we had digital cameras and digital video cameras, and video editing systems became nonlinear and went online. And, computer systems became cheap enough that every man and his dog could suddenly make videos and produce films. And we were all going, oh my God, woe is me. Everybody's making films. Oh, how will the studios survive? Well, what happened was there was an extraordinary glut of really shit films.
Yeah.
Yes, every man and his dog can now make movies, and they're all bad. That's the thing. You still have to know what you're looking for. If you don't have an eye as an artist,
yeah,
you're going to make rubbish. And if you don't know what good writing looks like, you're going to write rubbish. It doesn't change anything. It's ultimately it's a tool for using that might improve your work. Sure, it's going to take out mistakes and it's going to do that stuff, but it doesn't change anything. You still have to have good ideas. Without those ideas, it's still just more senseless glut.
Yeah.
So there's my opinion. That's not actually my official opinion, because I have an opinion of everything that's coming up later in the show, which I have prepared.
Yes, preparation is key. So Avery says, I feel like WotC is trying to crank out as much content as they can for 5e before 1D&D/5.5e drops, making most of it obsolete. Yeah,
right.
That's
and
a good
Upright
point.
Man, that's probably true. Upright Man said, in painting it fixed extra fingers in 2 minutes. Exactly. Like, what the fuck? How did this get past quality control? This is what I'm saying. Is like, how did they not notice this, and why didn't they fix it? It's so easy to fix. Really
mind-blowing.
Yeah, maybe they got the Pinkertons to do it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, well, we know, they're not. They need to get better quality control. We know that. So,
right.
All right. Well, moving on. Your week in games segment. I have not had any activity for my week in games, but I will take this opportunity to say that what I have been doing this week, for any viewers that are interested, is I have kicked off my own YouTube channel. So I'm just going to do a little shameless plug here real quick. It's just a little budding channel right now, so I only have a few videos and shorts and things like that. But you can expect things from me on a regular basis. That's the plan. So the channel is called Perty Nerdy. So PERTY and then nerdy. My whole channel is just going to focus on world building because that's my passion. So right now I'm just doing kind of a wide, broad look at world building, because I think that's going to help the most people in the beginning, just kind of speaking it about everything at a broad scale. And then eventually I will start tailoring the series to go down to more granular subjects. So that's what you have to look forward to. If you guys are interested, come find me. It's Pretty Nerdy on all the socials, and I can share the links later when we're on a break maybe, or something like that. But that's what I've been busy with this week.
Awesome.
So no games, but yes, next show we should probably have something from me. So this is all you now. Let's hear about your week in games.
Oh, well, I had some games cancelled, which wasn't fun. My vampire game got cancelled on Sunday night because various people had various things. So instead, I spent the evening talking to one of my players about his character in our upcoming Return of the Vaingate Chronicles, which will be airing on the 18th on Rollstream on Twitch. So that's www.twitch.tv/Rollstream. Anyway, so that was that. Burning Path this week. Our intrepid heroes venturing across the landscape, doing a bit of a hex crawl on some new maps I made in Incarnate. They got to a druid village where their guide took them, but the druids were all missing or dead, and so they sort of figured out eventually that they'd been dragged off by trolls. So they decided they were looking for a shortcut through the mountains, and they went to the location where the shortcut was according to the map they found, and entered into the tombs, which they've discovered, these Ostorian giant tombs in the mountains, and they entered in there and fought some trolls, quite a lot of trolls. One of them nearly got dragged and thrown down a well. In fact, Avery will probably remember that quite vividly, because that was him. Then on Sunfall, we had some players missing on that session too, unfortunately. But the ones that did turn up, they all get inspiration just for turning up. They explored a new town, a new area, Kiventan. They went on a mission looking for somebody that had been probably kidnapped, and they eventually tracked them down after a few MacGuffins. They traveled far too far, and I made a classic mistake in that, and I like to talk about my mistakes. Actually, I like to talk about my mistakes as openly as I can, because I think people can learn from them, and it helps me remember them as well, you know. So my mistake was a classic one, and that was to gatekeep a plot point behind a check, a skill check. And it's really classic. You can so easily do it. You're like, okay, so basically they didn't find the tracks, the prints, the footprints, and the evidence that when they found the bodies in the forest, they did do one check. One of the players made a check to look for the tracks, but they failed that check abysmally. And I was like, well, what the fuck? Okay, so I thought they would eventually come back to this, but I was mistaken. They went off on a whole other sort of area, and I had to kind of slowly redirect them back to the plot. Which took a lot of time and really got sidetracked. But I also kind of enjoyed it because they went off on exploring the world a little bit. So, you know, I kind of enjoyed that because I've been developing the world a lot. So anyway, no,
I think that's great though that you like to share when you make a mistake, because I think being on a lot of D&D forums, that's like the number one thing that I've seen people post about is like, you know, I want to DM, but I'm so afraid. And I honestly feel like it's so intimidating to new people who want to do it, because DMs kind of, I don't know, put off this vibe that like, we know all and we really don't. And even if we did, you can't be perfect. So
I mean,
it needs to be more evident that we make mistakes too.
Absolutely. And the thing is, DMs, you make mistakes, and you can never be perfect. You're not going to be perfect all the time. It's you know, as an actor and somebody that's performed for a long time, if you're acting on stage or in a movie or something, you've got a script. You've spent hours preparing very minute details of that script, of every moment, of every, you know, for your character. And you're only playing one character usually, you know, unless you're doing something very extraordinary or different. But when you're DMing, you're playing all the characters and you're improvising the whole time. And so you can't have the same expectations. It's not going to be a TV show or a movie, you know, it just can't be that good. You can go to all the planning in the world, and I certainly do try sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes I improvise a lot. And sometimes those are the best games because your expectations of yourself are lower, and so you tend to hit a higher benchmark. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
I agree. What else have I been up to? Lots of Incarnate mapping, and still using ChatGPT for games and sessions and planning and creating stuff in the middle of games where people ask questions and stuff. It's like, what kind of, I don't know, describe some items that a head druid may have in their abode, for example, and boom, 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 there it is, and you don't have to use it. You can just steal bits and pieces, or just a few words sometimes is enough in your peripheral vision to give you some inspiration to be able to describe something. Anyway, that's my week in games. Pretty much.
Nice.
Thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, thank you. So I am very excited to hear about your unsolicited opinion tonight.
Right. Well, Russell's unsolicited opinion. All right. So I don't want to tread on the old mill of what is a better or worse, railroading or sandboxing. I think many of us agree that the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, a combination of these two approaches that provide the illusion of total agency without letting the players run amok and act like the worst kind of murder hobos on the one hand and wasting all your DM prep time on the other. So, there's kind of a middle ground there. Instead, I'm wanting to talk about my own strategies and ideas, and also perhaps some original, borrowed, stolen, adapted ones from some of the best minds on the internet. Many of these ideas have been developed concurrently by different DMs and GMs in different times and places since the inception of role-playing games. So how do you combine them, and what is the goal? So I'll just talk about myself. My goal is to finish the campaign, to finish the story, while bringing the players back for more each session with a sense of wonder, a rising sense of drama, a sense of rising stakes as they become more familiar with and part of the world which they inhabit and interact with. Ultimately, I want my players to have fun and leave a mark on the game world, even if it's just a dirty stain from where they've died and gone splat. And to do that, I need to engage them, immerse them, and motivate them. So here's my strategy. So the first trick that I try to use is to engage and immerse the players by setting up some boundaries. Oh my God, boundaries in a sandbox. Yes, alarm bells are all ringing. Oh my God, not creative boundaries. Well, let me explain. I do this because my game has a mood and a theme and a super objective, like a movie or a book or a video game. My objective is to distill drama from the interaction of a few players, and by setting and my setting or world, what am I trying to say here? Conflict is drama, right? So that there are various types of conflict. Inner conflict, which is the most interesting and important conflict, and encouraging your players to have inner conflict will result in the overall sort of better role-playing and better story. So, for example, my father is King Evran, and King Evran is a tyrant. I stand against tyranny. So there you go, inner conflict. Outer conflict can be broken up even further and is often the result of various types of inner conflicts. So at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to get to, my real point, is that when you're sandboxing, you want to have a kind of network of interacting NPCs and what have you. You're responding to the players. So from my point of view, sandboxing and railroading kind of go together. You're trying to ultimately bring all of these forces to bear in a way that seems seamless and give the players the illusion of agency. You're not trying to give them total agency, because if they have that, nothing will happen. If you let the players do anything they want, more often than not, they don't do anything. You
Right.
kind of have to prod them,
Yeah,
and
you do kind of have to poke and prod.
Yeah, I mean,
Something happens all of a sudden, and then now they're off.
right. Now, really good players will be proactive. And I mean, if you watch any movie or TV show or what have you, main characters, one of the first lessons they teach you in like writing school is that your characters should be proactive. You can't have them sitting around doing nothing. So preferably the players already have reasons. And so when you're in session 0, that's your inception point. You want to get right in there, right away, straight up front, make sure that the players have reasons to work together and do things, that you can manipulate them in some way or form. And on that note, I have been developing, interestingly enough, with some assistance from Avery, in fact, a tattoo system, a new tattoo system for the game, because I find the system in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything to be a bit lame. And
Yeah.
it's kind of bad, to be honest. The idea that you can get a tattoo and a needle and stick it in you and attune to it, and boom, you've got a tattoo. And then if you don't like it, you can take it out, and that defies the whole point of tattoos. They're fucking permanent.
Right.
So we're designing a new system, and it's, I don't know, I might give it away. Who knows? We'll see. But it's at this point, I've got like 100 pages of tattoos, at least ideas for tattoos,
Mm-hmm.
and a system that kind of seems to work. It's based around Constitution. And what's interesting is there's a shared tattoo system. So you can have a group of people who all have shared tattoos, and they synergize with each other, giving people a reason to work together.
So when you
So-
say shared tattoos, do you mean like there's a group of individuals that would have the same tattoo? That's what you mean?
Well, it could be the same tattoo, or they could be somehow harmonized or linked. So, one could be fire, water, earth, air, or something like that.
Okay.
Or they could be the same exact tattoos, or they could be members of a cult who all have the same tattoo. But when they're within 30 feet of each other, they give each other advantage on dexterity saving throws or something shit like that. There's lots of things, lots and lots and lots and lots of combinations and ways to make this stuff work. So it's kind of cool. But the idea that the party could obtain shared tattoos that give them bonuses when they work together is quite a cool concept, because then the party want to work together and they
Right.
stop fucking around.
Right.
So, I'm finding that quite an interesting way to go. So, yeah, there you go. That's my very discombobulated opinion of everything this week.
No, that's actually really cool. I like the idea of trying to find ways to incentivize the players to work together on things. I remember for me anyway, one of the most memorable moments in the campaign I play in was when both me and another player, I'm trying to remember, I think we had the same initiative and even the same dex bonus, but just as a nicety, he let me go first in the order.
Right.
But then when it came to the how do you want to do this, or the last move, somehow I can't remember. I think he was holding a spell for some trigger that happened on my turn. So it ended up being like we killed this guy together. And so I said, well, why don't you describe your how do you want to do this? And then I'll tack onto it what I do, because I fight with chains. So I have like dual chains that like, crazy all over the place. And he's a bard.
Right.
And he's a bard, but he has a sword. So I think he did something where he like basically skewered from the top down this monster, stabbed the monster down into the ground, and then I took my chains and kind of like wrapped it around and then pulled tight, so I kind of spiralized the monster, and together that was like the best how do you want to do this, and I thought it was great. And we talk about it all the time because we're like, we should do combo moves, we should talk more about like combo moves on monsters, and we've only ever done it a few times. I wish we would do something more like that. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that the D&D game particularly kind of lacks, is any kind of real ability to synergize characters and their abilities together in ways and work in combination. You can use the advanced kind of rules for stuff like flanking and things is useful, and that helps getting players work together, but not to that kind of degree,
Right, yeah.
And sort of an inspiration reward for working together, giving two players inspiration for doing something synergistic like that could be very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might talk more about this tattoo system next week, and give you a bit more detail on that and see how it's going. But I like it.
Yeah.
I think Avery likes it too. He's building a character with some tattoos to test this shit out. So yeah,
that'll be cool.
But we decided, it was
Avery
his idea.
is the guinea pig.
It was his idea to use the Constitution modifier as the primary kind of thing. So if your tattoo casts spells, for example, it will use your Constitution modifier as your spell attack bonus, because it's coming from a tattoo on your body.
Yeah.
And so, in order to get the tattoo, you have to be able to withstand its magical powers being implanted into your body somehow.
Yeah.
There's bigger ones and smaller ones. We're using slots. I'm already talking too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. What's
All right.
next?
Well,
We should move on.
Well, we're at that point in the show because we've kind of like backloaded this show. I think we have a lot to talk about, so it's fine that we're going to go ahead and take our break now. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we will get into our topic about pre-show prep for DMs and players. But I know we lost some folks when we had our issue earlier, but for those of you watching, I hope you get excited with me. Okay. Because I think if you're in the D&D community, you've probably seen at least one of these shorts, TikToks, YouTube videos, what have you, floating around. And that is Windrose. If you don't know who Windrose is, you've probably at least heard people talking about dwarf metal. And
Yes.
I am so excited. I'm so excited because the second that I had seen this come through my feed, like I don't even know how long ago this was, I was so excited. I sent something immediately to Josh and I was like, these guys, we need these guys. And I didn't think anything more of it past that. And then Josh just pulled the rabbit out of the hat and said, guess what? We got Windrose to share one of their videos with us. So that's what you guys are getting for our break. It's a treat. It's dwarf metal. Enjoy the shit out of it because I am so excited and so pumped, and I hope you guys feel that. So, Windrose for our break. We have more music parody from Arcane Anthem. We have more deception checks from our illustrious leader, Josh. And then we have some bad lip reading at the end, which people really enjoy. And then when we come back from the break, we will be talking about our pre-show prep. Let's see. Oh, I saw some comments. I just wanted to make sure we got them real quick. Upright Man's talking about a tattoo system.
Yeah, well, we should talk about that if you get a chance. Tattoo Man. Upright Man. Yes.
It could be Tattoo Man. You don't know.
Pick your brains. Feel
All
free
right.
to pick mine.
All right, folks, I'm going to let you guys get to it. Dwarf Metal, we will see you guys after the break. All right?
Right.
Bye.
Cool. Bye.
Hello there, adventurer. I see you're interested in the vast wealth of knowledge I've acquired and stored over the years. That's fantastic. Come in, out of the sand and the sun, take a look around. It's not every day such an interesting and willing group of guests stumble upon my library. Feel free to explore. It's been years since the last group came through here, and they looked much less promising than you. I'm sure you'll find all sorts of interesting things, if you know where to look. But be warned, this library holds more than just books and scrolls, and only the worthy are allowed to leave with the knowledge that they find. So I suppose the real question is, do you have what it takes to impress me?
Have all the mind flayers come to light. Tentacle faces, psionic blight. Harvest the patrons, a crew, it's time to idle. Suck out your mind. High intellect, what do they have to gain? Illithid serving the elder brain. Calling the weak that they find like time to idle. Suck out your mind.
Addicted to the way your mind is played right there before me. I'm an aberration creeping in the underdark, just lurking. I share everything with elder brain. We speak with telepathy, lawful evil. Eat your brain, I drop your HP down to nothing.
Show me what's inside your mind, behind that pretty face. I can't dominate monsters, but they take once a day.
And you can lead your bodies to me, make them wish they fled. I'm in the heads, inciting dread, and now they're wondering.
Wondering.
Hey there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. What can we do for you?
Hey, I'm Vic Mascatoni, and my crew and I, we got us a heist up there at Old Aldor's place in a couple of nights. Now,
All right.
we're trying to slay the dragon on this one, if you know what I mean. So what I need is a few high-quality lockpicks, you know. None of that cheap crap that you sell the commoners. So what's a rogue got to do to get a good lockpick? What do you got for me?
Well, we don't sell parts, but if you're needing help getting into something, we can send a technician out.
Ooh, that's even better. So I tell you what, you send them up to Aldor's, right? You bring the lockpicks, right? We'll cut you guys in on the heist. Do it 50-50.
All right. Is this heist in a car, a house? What are we
It's up at Old
out of?
Aldor's place. He's sitting on a mountain of gold up there, and we just need to get in there and fill up our bags with as much of that gold as we can. You know what I mean? But you bring your lockpicks. You show up. We'll split it 60-40.
I'm not sure our insurance would cover us sending our technicians.
I tell you what, I'll slide you $2,500 up front. Nobody's got to know nothing. You come with the picks.
Well, I'm not the technician. I'm just the dispatcher.
Well, get me to the technician. He might want to make $2,500.
Okay. What's the address?
And that's going to be up at Way.
Okay. In which city?
What are we calling here? We're calling Portland, right? Yeah, it's going to be in Portland.
Yeah. You said Way?
That's correct. It's exactly how it sounds, man. Yeah.
All right. Is there a business nearby? I'm not able to pull that address up.
Well, you wouldn't be able to pull it up because it's Old Aldor's place. And he keeps it under tight lock and key. Why we need the picks.
I don't think we'd be able to assist.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll go on down there to the next locksmith and see if they want to make some money. You have a good night, huh?
You too.
close to myself. Fudge a couple numbers so the body don't run out of health. Or raise the perfect TPK, watch him bleed. It's a lot of power to wield. Ooh, gotta balance these conflicts. How other players gonna handle taking licks now? Not to end their fun till the game is done. Ooh, it's a pleasure to inflict out. Get up big and watch the players start to trip out. When they feel they've won, hit 'em with a stun.
Listen, son, I give you 4 cents each for them vanilla wafers.
You can eat sand, young man. I mean, this guy's really ridiculous. Ow!
Boy, I had one Wonder Candy and you chewed it.
That's because my
You
friend...
shush it.
Dude!
Uh-oh.
No, I oughta
Well, I'll
just...
smack you till Friday and it's only Wednesday.
I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, run on, Prince Valiant. Ah.
Hey, we're gonna make this work, all right? Gonna get enough money for your toenail transplants, I promise.
Quick, Dad, because the tops of my toes are, like, really slippery.
Well, if I can just get this park to work, I'll get that bonus from Mr. Lannister, and we can protect your toes.
Hey, guys, I'm White Lightning.
Ow! 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 You hurt my sunburn!
Your breath stank, or what'd you eat?
What? They're just baby cats. Jeez.
Did that just happen?
Yep. I even let them warm up slowly in the sun.
I'm not feeling good. 'Cause we should have not eaten kitten meat. Is that the sound of your bowels?
Yes.
I really need to...
Poor baby. You need a song. Little bunny bunny. You're so pretty and cute and you're precious to me.
It's not doing much good.
I love you. Your bunny fur is great. Oh, beautiful bunny, come play.
And we're back. Hey,
We're
folks.
back.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay, sorry. I'm just nerding out. I'm really nerding out. I love Windrose so much. So I was very excited. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our topic because we have a lot to delve into. And I thought we could probably start off with the player side of it because I think there's plenty of stuff that DMs need to prep for. As players, I feel like maybe prep is a little bit on the leaner side because you're just prepping for yourself, for your character, whereas DMs kind of have to prep for all eventualities.
Right.
So
right.
As a player, I know you don't get to play very much, but as a player, is there anything in particular that you do to kind of prepare for a game?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
What do you do?
Well, I mean, okay, well, I guess the first thing that I personally do, and I'm bearing in mind that I'm way overboard when I prepare for playing because I don't get to do it very often, and I am an actor, so I have I draw a lot on that. So I really want to know everything about my character. I want to have a voice.
You want to know your
prepared.
character's motivation?
I know who you want to know who your character is, and you want that to interact with your character sheet, your stats and what have you have to make sense in regards to that. So you're making a character that sort of gels with their backstory and how you intend to play them. So I will do things like testing out. I'll be driving in the car, trying out new voices, and especially phrases. Certain types of phrases and words and things that you're commonly going to say. So it's really good to have a vocabulary for a particular character, because characters don't all sound the same. They all speak differently.
Yeah.
Right. So each character needs to have their own vocabulary. They need to have their own cadence and possibly an accent. So those are things that I will work on. And I'm also going to think about what kind of strategies I'm going to employ as far as mechanics are concerned, understanding all your spells, knowing how your spells work, knowing how your attacks and all of that shit works. That's all super important. But that stuff, I mean, I use D&D Beyond a lot, and a lot of that stuff is really quite simple to just pull up on D&D Beyond these days. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the mechanics. It's certainly a thing, but I want to know how my character looks, what their interactions are going to be like. When I played Tom Hardley, the halfling bard sorcerer in Caitlin's game on Rollstream a few weeks ago, I spent a fair bit of time kind of working on his voice and his attitude, and I want to be boots on the ground. I want to feel what it's like to be in that space. That's what's exciting about role playing to me. You know, I mean, I'm not that excited about the mechanics. That's just there to facilitate the story. So for me, it's about being the character and staying in character the whole time as much as I can. Not everybody enjoys that, so you know, don't take this as advice for everybody, but that's my approach. I'm a bit of a method actor in that respect, and I will try and do those things. Also, having some props can be really useful. You don't need to have loads and loads and loads of props or costume type stuff. Something as simple as a hood that you can throw up can be good. There's an old adage from the drama industry, so to speak. In film, if you want to have a kitchen, you have to have a fucking kitchen in a movie, right? Otherwise, it's not a kitchen. It doesn't look like a kitchen. No one's going to believe that it's a kitchen. But if you're on a stage in a theater, or even on a street, standing on a little podium, it doesn't matter. All you need is a spoon to sell the idea that you're in a kitchen.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So theater is very economical. You only need to suggest the idea of a kitchen.
I see what you're saying.
You don't have to have a kitchen, right? Whereas a movie, it's all about the details. Theater, it's all about suggesting the details and allowing the audience to elaborate on them. So having a prop, any prop, something that's particular to your character. And the thing that's even more important than that is you don't even have to have the prop. You just need to have something in your mind. You need to have if you know what things your character has, what objects they have, and what kind of clothes they wear, you know how to play your character in terms of little small interactions. You might be smoking a pipe, or you might be playing with your hair, or there's all sorts of things that you can do to play actions. And actors can learn to play multiple actions at the same time. So you can do a whole bunch of things all at the same time, never breaking character, and always having something to do. And that all grounds you into your character. Because if you're sitting there just like, oh, yeah, I want to move over there. I want to do this thing. Can I make a skill check? You know, you're not really in character. You're playing some sort of thing, the character's guardian angel who's sort of ushering the character around, but you're not in character.
Right.
It's different, you know. It's more, I mean, maybe from a point of view like a writer, there are people who certainly play like that in third person, and I just like to play in first person. So
yeah,
I don't know. Those are my ideas for preparation.
No, it sounds like you and I are very similar in that aspect. I mean, I've never been an actor, so I don't know, you know, if I'm method acting, if that's what I do. And it sounds like Upright Man also. We should just all three of us get together at some point and do something.
That'd be great. We should do it on your YouTube channel.
But yeah, So I can't remember if I told you, but I know I've told some friends. The campaign that I play in, we're getting at the tail end of that, so I'm already thinking about my next character, and I'll do dishes, and same thing. I'm starting to try out voices and attitudes, even because right now I play something that's very hardcore barbarian with extreme rage and extreme feelings, extreme sadness, extreme rage, extreme everything. And so I'm trying to find something that feels and tastes a little bit different for the next time. So I do a lot of that. I do a lot of listening to music because that I'm very musically inclined. So music really gets me into a headspace. And also if I find the right music, the lyrics, songwriters, that's what they're paid for, right? It's poetry. And I don't know where this, are you hearing this beeping noise too? Is it just me? Because I don't know what I didn't know what I did during the break, but apparently I keep hearing this beeping noise. But anyway, so where was I? Yes. Lyrics. Sometimes just the lyrics they're poetic enough that they are able to describe a feeling that I'm trying to make tangible that I can't figure out how to. And so when I listen to music, it sometimes it'll perfectly describe the thing that I need to find my character kind of thing. So I listen to a lot of music, especially right before I head to a D&D game. And then I'll usually kind of refresh myself with the notes because
and that's important.
We have our Google Doc that we share the players so we can all update this. But I also have my own personal agenda that I don't necessarily want the other players to know about because I do a lot of planning. Things happened in the last game, and so now I take that entire month, because we play monthly, to think about how my character is going to respond to that thing that happened. And I'll take the entire month to be in that headspace and go, would she be angry about that? Fuck yeah, she's going to be angry about that. Okay, what's she going to do about it? Right? So I have to really, it takes me a while, but yeah, that's what I do. Oh no, Russell, you better come right back. The internet is just, they've got it out for us tonight. All right, let's see. What's up, Red Man saying? Well, he's right back here. Good. You're back.
Are we back?
You're back. Okay.
Oh, man. Fuck, that was scary.
It was scary.
I was just going to add something there, too. Is as far as preparing goes as an actor, the thing about acting is it's got to be specific. And the more specific it is, the more specific the acting is overall, generally, as a general kind of rule, the better it is.
Yeah.
You can generally play sad, but if you're playing specifically I am sad because is much better. And if you can play specifically I'm sad because blah, 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 but more to the point, I am playing against my emotion. Playing against emotions is a really powerful tool. For example, you're sad, but you're trying to be happy for the other players or for the other characters, right? So they're like, are you okay? And you're like, yeah, you're not okay. That's playing against. So playing opposite to how your character's really feeling really brings out that contrast and your ability to be that thing. So having thought about those types of things and having little anchors, placing little emotional anchors in the story for yourself so that you can find it, especially if you're playing monthly, you're going to have to drop emotional points in the story that you can reflect on and pull back to the present.
Right.
Having memories is really cool. One of the things I do with my players as a DM is I ask my players to come up with 10 memories that they will have flashbacks from whenever they make a death save.
Yeah.
And that's something that I get them to do. So that's their prep. That's their homework, part of it anyway.
No, I think that's actually a great idea. You've talked about that before, and I need to use that in my next campaign because I love that. And Avery says that they make playlists too. So yeah, I have playlists for many characters in my head.
Knowing who your characters are related to is super important because the biggest factors, the biggest relationship in any character's life is their parents and their family, right? And players almost always just ignore that. It's quite amazing how they just don't want to know about it, don't want to think about it. I'm an adventurer, I'm macho, I'm out to have a big adventure, I don't want anything to do with family stuff. But it really makes your character shallow if you don't have that stuff. It's
that might be,
rare.
I'm going to be like devil's advocate here, and it might be because of the whole escapism of the game, and they're like, I don't want to think about family. I don't know.
I get that.
But I agree with you.
I mean, if we're playing Vampire the Masquerade, for example, because we're not just talking about D&D, there are other games in the world. You're going to be considering who your sire is, because your sire is super important.
Right.
You want to think about what your objectives and goals are, and your relationships to the other people in the world, not just the players, but the NPCs who you know, how those relationships work. That's probably more important than your stats.
Yeah.
Your stats are useful, but that doesn't make a character. A stat block or a character sheet or an inventory, a character doth not make.
Yes.
So that's my opinion.
All right. So let's talk about, we've talked about what you do and what I do as players to prep. But we have kind of a list here of some things in general for everyone to focus on. Now, Russell and I, we've been playing and DMing for a long time, so we don't have to do some of these things, like familiarize yourself with the rules, especially if you're, coming into the game new. No?
Just on that, I think that, first of all, nobody knows all the rules.
Right.
Anybody that thinks they do is probably dreaming, unless that's all they do with their life. And if that's their priority, I really wonder whether their stories are that great. So I think that there's kind of an impetus or an obligation to always continue learning the rules.
That's a better way. I like that better.
Right.
Yes.
So you are constantly and always learning. And I mean, every session I learn something. Players, they know their characters. They learn rules. They know rules. They've played in games with DMs that have really focused on certain rules. And so different DMs focus on different rules, obviously. And so if you have a player who's played with a DM that's really all about the flanking, they're going to be experts on flanking. And so you might not have ever really used flanking. So suddenly you're like being exposed to this whole part of the system that you've never really considered that much.
Yeah.
And so now you're like, well, fuck it, I need to learn about that, or certain types of skill checks and so on. I mean, if you've never had a character go into death saves, you might need to suddenly look up death saves.
Right.
And oftentimes players know this shit, and it doesn't matter how long you've played, you might not have played this system for that long, so there's so much to learn, and your players are your biggest resource for learning rules.
Yeah, and that's very true. You don't, as a player, like you said, you don't have to know all the rules. Honestly, that burden is probably more on the DM than the player, but just kind of familiarizing yourself, what's the word
you need to know the rules for your part of the game.
For your part, yeah. Make sure I think I have this somewhere else down in the list, but make sure you understand your character, what your character's abilities are, the spells, how all that works.
And at the very least, if you can't know the rules for your character and your spells and so on, you need to know where to find them. Fast.
Yes.
Knowing where to find stuff fast is the most useful thing you can do.
Yeah. If you don't have that stuff hard copy, like, the player's handbook, and you don't have little tabs in your player's handbook, then and let's say when we play, we all bring our laptops and iPads and things like that. So just have those tabs open so that you can just click and boom, it's already there ready to reference,
That's why I love D&D Beyond. Everything, you just mouse over it and pop up comes the window with the rules for that thing.
Yeah. I also tell a lot of, especially new players, that sometimes, for me anyway, I remember the best way to refresh myself, especially with 5e stuff, was to just watch real play videos on YouTube, because you're being entertained, but also it's kind of this other way of absorbing the rules. By seeing it as an example. So I tell a lot of newbies or people who are joining my games, I'll give them certain videos that I'll send them, say like, watch this, start from here, watch for these 10 minutes. This is an example of this, or vice versa.
Yeah. And prepping questions for the dungeon master. is quite useful. There are certain things about the world that you need to know, and you're going into a session, you're like, okay, we're going back to a town my character came from, but the other players haven't been there before.
Yeah.
So what do I know that the other players might not know? Who do I know? What relationships do I have with the characters in this town? What have I done in this town? What things do I need to know about it that will allow me to interact with it realistically in a way that, is befitting of the story?
Yeah, that's a good point because, communicating with the DM, finding out, because some of that information, the DM might say, well, what do you want to do? Like, describe it all, tell me. Or the DM might have that stuff and say,
Right.
okay, here's this entire, 3 pages of your town with, these NPCs that and this shop, and here's a map, whatever. But I'm going to tell you, if your DM does that, do them the courtesy of looking it over. Now, not to say that they have to just run you roughshod and say, no, I don't like your ideas. Here's your town. But if they do put some of that work in, like, work with them on it because they care about you, obviously, if they put that work into it to give you all that
I've been
information.
making a lot of handouts lately, and I'm lucky my players actually read them, so that's good. And they utilize them and get excited about them, which is pretty cool.
I've had players where, like, we were going to their hometown and I asked them, like, is there anybody that anything you want? And they were like, no, you do whatever. And so I provided them, and I tried not to go overboard. It was only 3 pages, but it included a map, and then, like, here's the main things that about your town. And we get to the next session, and he never read it, and was kind of quickly scanning it in the middle of the game. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So, I mean, he apologized. He knew he did wrong.
I mean, the
but...
truth is, players have busy weeks. They have a lot of
Yeah.
other things in their lives, and some people want to turn up to their game and be immersed in it for 2 or 3 hours, or 4 or 5 hours, or however long the game's going to go, and then just put it down and go away and live their lives for the rest of the week or month or however. Other players like you and me, we live in those worlds, and we spend our time outside of the game preparing for that game and reflecting on the game, and reflecting is another thing you can do to prepare, thinking about what has happened, and how that impacts the present.
Right.
So yeah.
So now, I mean, we've kind of started talking about this as if, like, the player has their character already set up. But if you're coming into a game brand new, first game,
session 0 kind of thing.
Session 0 or session 1, what have you, and everybody's meeting everybody for the first time. I've seen this so many times where people come in and they've never even given a thought to what their character looks like. And and then their mind is blown, and they're having to come up with a description last minute.
Right.
So I would suggest, if you don't know what your character looks like, that's something you should definitely prepare for. What gear do they have? What what clothing? What colors?
Hire an artist.
Yeah.
Or worse, go and make an AI picture of your character. I spent an hour building up an AI picture for one of your friends the other day.
You did. Thank you very much.
So,
but you know what? Not even all that. I mean, yes, AI is available now, but even before AI was available, I would just Google, like, I don't know, pink
Google images
skinned,
of celebrities.
Yeah, pink-skinned wood fairy blah blah with harp. And I may not get the right thing, but then I'll start getting images that I'm like, okay, that's close enough. This is what I look like. And I would at least have a picture to show everybody and describe something.
You can put together a kind of mood board for your character. You can get a bunch of textures and say, this is the texture of their clothes. This is the cut of their clothes. This is what their eyes look like. This is what their hair looks like. This is the bag of holding that they're carrying. This is their sword. I mean, I would do that too. You go and find pictures that resemble aspects of your character. They don't have to each of them individually be the specific character, but they all feed together into this overall concept and mood of the character. And you can keep that collection as part of a character build, so to speak.
I like that you mentioned the mood board. I've done that too with my current character, because this was all before AI stuff. And Avery, I'm terrible at drawing things, and I'm also terrible at generating AI images. So yeah, I still do. I have a mood board for my next character, even though I
Right.
could use AI art and stuff.
Well, you could get that mood board and give it to somebody. You know, there's a great thing to do is get that description and the mood board and hand it over to an artist, and then say, right, make me something. Here's $500 for your art.
Right. And I'm just, so for players, I'm not saying this because it's like, you know, you need to be shallow and know exactly what you look like from head to toe. But as a player, I know that I'm not engaged. I'm a visual person, and maybe not everybody is, but I need to understand what my team and my party looks like. And so, like, to this day, one of the players that I play with, I have no idea what his character looks like, because he's tried to describe it, but all he's described is that, like, in the beginning he was fat and bald, and then at some point we went through the Shadowfell and he lost a lot of weight because we weren't keeping track of how many days we were there, and now he's not fat, but he's still bald, and that's all I understand about what he looks like. And it's hard for me to really, like, visualize who is this person that I've been traveling with all this time. So, and same thing with the character that you're generating art for now. Like, I had no idea that's what his character looked like until he started generating images on AI. Like, his descriptions were not as detailed.
Specific, right. One thing that I'm also going to add, going back to the sort of how to make your character more than just a two-dimensional cardboard cutout. If you know that your character is a dwarf or an elf or even a human from a certain place, knowing the more you know about that place, the better, because then you can work on things like the culture of the character. If they are a cleric, you can look up or create or generate things like rites and rituals and bits of dialogue and things that you can throw in there. You need to know who your deity is. You know, who do you pray to, or if they do pray, you know, that type of thing. Prejudices are really fucking important, because nobody is without prejudices, and characters that have prejudices are way more interesting than characters that are just love everything all the time because blah. You know, in the Vaingate Chronicles, one of the main themes of the story is that a large amount of the characters are elves, and they come from a place where the elves are culturally very prejudiced against orcs. And there's reasons for that, because there's been a bunch of like
history,
what are they called? Well, history, but false flag incidences, politically false flag incidences perpetrated by a usurper king particularly, have caused the elves to hate the orcs and to believe the orcs are ready to invade them at any time, which is not actually true. And so the players are learning and having to play characters that are prejudiced against orcs, and then meeting orcs and discovering that every orc is a different orc. And some of them are reasonable, some of them are civilized, some of them have, you know, different goals and so on. And they're not all just evil. So that's kind of cool. And so every culture in the world has a set of social accretions that they pass on to their offspring by default. And so if you want to make a character in my world that is an atheist, it's not very likely, because why would they be? They suddenly had this revelation that they should be different to every fucking body else in the whole world just because the player doesn't like the idea of playing a religious character. Well, news, you're in a fantasy world, and the
gods are real. The
gods are real. So, you know, you playing an atheist in that world is kind of dumb. You know, or alternatively, playing an elf that loves orcs is very unlikely. You need a good reason. I mean, certainly you can build a reason. You can create a backstory that sort of explains that, but having it just by default because you feel like it, that's cute, but it's not very deep.
Right. So yeah, I want to touch on a couple of things that Upright Man said, going back to like character appearances. If you're not a creative person, because not everybody is, you know, and you can't find an image that you like, I like Upright Man's idea of just, you know, find one or maybe even two things that are just very unique to your appearance. That way there's some anchor for people to latch on to. That's not exactly what he said, I'm paraphrasing, but that way people have something to latch on to for how you look. Like I said, fat and bald, I can at least have that in my head.
Right. Then that works for NPCs too. When you're a DM and you're describing NPCs, if you say, well, there's a merchant in the corner, that's one thing. But if you say there's a fat merchant with a beard and a bung eye,
Yeah.
you know, suddenly they remember that character. You know,
Right.
there's something for them, something memorable that you can visualize, and it doesn't have to be visual either. It can be something that's just descriptive or emotive. So yeah.
Yeah. So sorry,
Or
I had to go
habit.
back to character appearances, but yeah, you were talking about, backstory and making sure you kind of have some idea of your character's motivations, personality. And again, this goes back to like discussing with your DM, because for example, like I know our DM has already told us the next campaign that he's doing, like we have to create certain types of characters because like it's going to be a very dark world. Like there's not going to be happy-go-lucky people. Like you're going to begin your story by running away from something. Everyone is. Like that's basically what he said, So that at least gives us, we know already, like I can't be a happy gnome with two parents and nobody's dead, and like that's not going to be a reality. So make sure you talk with your DM just in case there's some guidelines that you need to follow for creating your backstory, your appearances, any of that. But...
And look for ways to maximize the drama, right? And in a way that works for everyone too, not just sort of some self-indulgent fucking story that makes you more important than everybody else, because that's just annoying,
right?
But look for ways to maximize the drama. The more you know about the campaign and the other players, the easier that is, and the more connections you can form with those other characters, the better it will be, because the more drama you can incur in that respect. And you need to make sure that whatever conflicts you have with the other players do not outweigh the bonds that you form with them, because otherwise the group won't work. So keep that in mind, looking for ways to maximize the drama.
Right.
Yeah.
And that goes kind of with, I had an item on the list here about engaging in role playing, which we kind of talked about, but that's not, yes, immerse yourself in your character, but also prepare that you're role playing with a group. And so prepare yourself. Like I know for me, because my character's backstory is very heavy compared to some of the other characters, like I have to kind of keep track of when I'm having the main character syndrome and when I have to, like, I need to back off now. Her time is over. And, that's part of being in this group, is sharing the limelight. And I do have to tell myself, I have to prepare myself to back off,
Part of the answer to that is those relationships. If you spend a few minutes or longer, preferably, thinking about, okay, so there's 4 other players in this group. There's a rogue, a paladin, and a wizard, and something like that. And you go, okay, well, how does my character interact with the rogue? Spend some time thinking about what that relationship is, so that when you go into the game, you have that relationship, and better yet, discuss it with the other player.
Right.
And do that with every player in the group, because then you both have some form of story or background or relationship that you can play upon, so that when you get into that situation and you're in that role playing, that relationship becomes the point of focus, not the character and not the player. It's about the story unfolding between the characters. And if you've done that with all the players and everybody's done it with each other, then it becomes a sort of synergistic thing where everybody is playing into the drama and everybody's taking turns, because it's part of a bigger thing. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Right. Yeah. That's like, I'm usually, first and foremost, I think about, like, how is my character going to react to this? And I'm thinking about it all month. And I know my character wants to behave this way and act this way. But then, yes, usually right before the game, I have to tell myself, oh, but this thing also happened to this character, and that's part of his backstory. And I want to make sure I ask him, hey, how's your character do? Like in game, I want to play that out so that I can get him talking about it, and maybe things will come up. And like, so, prepare yourself for that. Yeah. So that you're pulling other characters into the
Right.
conversation.
Well, one of the things they say in acting is that, you know, you need to make the other actors look good.
Mhm.
That's your job. Make the other players look good.
Mhm.
Whatever you can almost never fail by doing that. If you go out of your way to try and make the other players look better and look good, you make yourself look good. And it works for everyone. It's a win-win. If you're just there to make yourself look good, not so much.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to look like you're just standing out and being a dick.
Mhm.
So it's easy to go down that road. I mean, it's a big trap.
You know, and then I would say, like, I think you mentioned it, but, you know, I'm talking about in-game conversations, but then there are those times when maybe you need to have the out-of-game conversation before the game, whether it's, you know, my character's about to do something that is going to be like game breaking or
affect your character.
It's going to affect your character because there's no way I'm not going to do that. Like my character would definitely do this and you're going to fucking hate it and you're going to try to stop me or whatever, you know, like I've had that conversation before and
you can,
you know,
you can kind of discuss how you're going to resolve it generally without it breaking the game,
right?
And have a kind of a metagame conversation. Metagaming's not always bad,
right?
You know,
right.
there is good metagaming. We've talked about that.
Yes, we've talked about that. And then I would also say, because especially ever since I think with Critical Role, there's definitely a lot of conversation in the forums about having romances. You know, your characters having romances in game. And I would say, because for me, I don't know if it's for other girls, but for me, I'm at a table with all guys. So, you know, that would be something I think I would have to have a conversation with everybody and say, hey, are you guys okay with this? Because if you're a table full of guys that are like bros and like, I don't want romance at this table, then I'm not
we
gonna
kill ogres and kick down doors.
then I wouldn't want to engage in that because that wouldn't be fun for anybody but me, right? So those are other metagaming out of game conversations that you might want to have and say like, hey, I'm thinking that my character might want to do this. How do you guys feel about it? Is that okay? Like, let me know if we're doing too much of that kind of thing. So other ways to prep for the game. And then,
have a pen and paper. For fuck's sake. Bring your dice.
Yes.
Bring your character sheet.
All personnel report to the nearest tornado shelter.
Oh, goodness, folks. Thank you for sticking around. I will, you know, maybe, I don't know what it is. I need to burn some sage or something because we had several shows in our pocket where nothing bad happened. We were on a roll and it's been like 3 weeks of just bad things happening on our show. So, guys, we're back. Come back. Everybody come back now.
Come back.
Okay. Where were we? So we were kind of, I think we were kind of talking, you were talking about bringing your notes, bringing your pencils.
Right.
All that stuff. Yes.
You know,
Be prepared.
bring your brain.
I would say yes. As a player, you don't have to take copious notes of every little thing, right? But some notes would be helpful because I have had players where they come to the session and I do the recap. As the DM, I usually do the recap. However, I've seen it done where, like my DM, he doesn't always do the recap. He'll have one of us do the recap because then he wants to hear what we're latching onto, which is
because
smart.
Everybody's got a different point of view, right?
Right. So, hold on, I gotta see what everybody's saying here. This show is cursed. Yes, we do need a good cleric too. Well, Russell's very upset about that. But we do need a good cleric. I'm telling you, I have sage. I'm gonna burn it before the next show because I just don't know what happened. Just thinking about taking notes for online games. I've started using Google Keep. I'll have to look at it. I don't know what Google Keep is, but that's interesting. Okay, so yes, prepare some form of taking notes, whether it's pencil, paper, doodles, Google Docs, whatever. It would just be helpful to so that you're not lost, because I've had players go, wait, what was that name? And then like they're waiting and relying on some other player to dig up that information. And I'm like, well, if it's important to you, then you should have
Yeah.
taken the notes. That's
Yeah.
just my
I
stance.
agree. Yeah, and look, I stream a lot of games, and that's really useful because then you have a recording, and that you either have moved to YouTube or it's still on the, you can highlight parts of it or what have you and keep it on Twitch. But some of my players go back and watch those recordings and then take their notes from those.
That's
And
smart.
that gives them a great opportunity to review the story. I mean, it's really irritating sometimes
Mhm.
because they come back and go, Russell, you used the wrong NPC name in episode
Ah.
4 and scene blah, 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 and, whatever. They pick out all your mistakes, of
Mhm.
course, as a DM, but that's useful. And it's great for them because they have that resource. It's fantastic. So, I mean, I really recommend, if you can, record your game. And
Yeah.
better yet, I'm yet to do this, but I'm working on figuring out a system to get some sort of transcript from each game,
Oh,
because
that's
with that
great.
transcript, I'm pretty sure I can pump that through some AI shit and do
Yeah.
stuff with it.
Yeah.
Right, that's my plan.
Yeah. I
So
was
at the
actually going
moment,
to throw that out too, was
Yeah.
if you're bad at note taking, every phone I think at this point has like a voice recording app, and you can just pop that
Exactly.
onto the table and then don't
Yep.
even think about it. But
Yep.
then just like
And then-
your folks
and you've
watch
got a
the videos.
podcast.
Yeah, that's true. You got to
Instant podcast, look,
The
another
thing about it is that that's
regarding
not
notes-
searchable. Like, like having a Google Doc, at least we have a searchable,
That's
dang
true.
near 200-page document at this point. But,
Right. One
any
thing I've
way that you
started
can take
doing
notes.
that I'm testing, I haven't really figured out if this is going to work well yet, but I'm working on it at the moment, is after each session, I've started each campaign that I'm running, because I run about 5 or 6 at the moment, has a different ChatGPT chat. And
Uh-huh.
I type into it at the end of each session my notes about what happened, what I remember happening. I just put them in there, and then I get it to spit out a summary.
Yeah.
So I get a summary of each session now,
cool.
at least from my notes, and I have to correct the summary because sometimes the Chat GPT goes, "Oh, I'm just going to make some shit up and tell you how that thing happened," and it's like, no, I'm afraid that's not how it works. So I have to correct it, but I end up with a summary pretty quickly, and that I am thinking is going to end up being a blog. It's
Mhm.
going to go in player notes, and so on and so forth. It's going to be a really useful resource. If I was a player in an overall campaign, I would use ChatGPT to write down everything that happened, so
Mhm.
that I can go, who was the guy that we met in the tavern in the thing in session 8?
Yeah.
And
You could probably
ChatGPT
even
can-
use ChatGPT to just remember everything that's in your inventory for you, right?
Yes.
Like your bag
yes.
of holding,
Fuck yes. Yeah. I mean, you could have a chat for different subjects like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily use one chat to try and do
For all of
everything
it.
because it
Yeah.
does get confused, and it makes shit up from time to time. So
Yeah.
be careful. But I think it's going to be a really useful tool like that.
Yeah, yeah. So, aside from taking notes, players, I think at the very end of it, I just want to say that if you guys as a group select your next session date or time or whatever, block that time off. Just try your best to minimize distractions. Like if you know you're going to be busy from this time to this time on this date, make sure you've got your life set up. Make sure you eat in advance, or make sure, whatever it is that you need to do, because the DM's done a lot of work. You've got several people all committed, and if you flake, it sucks.
Notify your
Yes.
flatmates. Notify the people around you that you're going to be doing this thing, and you need complete silence.
Yes. So
no interruptions.
And that also means, because, I guess it depends on your table, but like at our table, we really try not to be on our phone at all during the game. Now, some people don't like that, or some people are uncomfortable having that as like a house rule. But I don't know, as a common courtesy, man, like prepare
Unless it's
yourself
D&D
to
Beyond.
not be on your phone. And if that means that you got to tell people, hey, I need you to take the trash out tonight because I'm not going to be home, and I need you to do that, and text all of that in advance. Get it all out of the way. Don't be on your phone. That would be greatly appreciated, I'm sure, by everybody at the table, because then everybody is in the game. That's just my personal opinion, but let's see. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
and then feedback to the DM and the players is valuable, meaning, this all goes back to communication, right? But like whether it's before the game or after the game, like tell the DM, hey, you did a good job. I really liked this encounter today because da 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 da. That's communication to the DM. Or like, we have a new player at the table that is really great at role playing, and I want everybody to know that, like, in my mind, this guy is welcome at our table anytime, and I want everybody to know that. So that's like feedback and communication to prepare everyone that, like, hey, maybe we'll have this guy back. Maybe we're gonna add a 6th player to the table. Moving on, like. I don't know if that's necessarily qualified as preparation. I think it's just communication, but it's all,
Yeah. Look, here's another thing that you can do as a player is to take note that your DM is probably doing a lot. And given that they are doing so much to prepare, unless you've got a really talented or really lazy or a really talented and lazy DM, you can do things to prepare, such as ask the DM if there's anything you can do to help. You can assist with things like laying out the maps. Some of my players are amazing and do stuff like they take photos at the end of each session of the grid map on the table and the miniatures, and then the next session they set it all up exactly how it was from the photographs that they've taken.
That's great.
That's really helpful. And they post those photos in the Discord that we have for our, we have a Discord channel for every game session, every campaign. So they post that stuff as well. So there's this record of where they've been, what they're doing, so on and so forth. That's really useful. There's all sorts of things that DMs love you to help with, other things they probably don't want you to help with. So ask before you do stuff. Don't just go ahead and do a bunch of shit unless you're pretty sure that it's going to be okay. And feed your DM chocolate cake.
Yeah, I was gonna say food, but yeah, whether it's chocolate cake or not, food is always appreciated.
In the case of Avery, he's always giving me licorice and snacks and things, and I love him for it. But yeah.
So, all right, man, I honestly didn't think we were going to take that long on player prep, but there is a lot,
prep.
That's just player prep. Okay, so
we haven't
DMs.
even started DMing talk yet.
DMs. Let's start. Okay, let's talk about what you and I do to prep as a DM.
You want to start? Why don't you start?
You want me to start? Okay, so I'm going to show off. It's not beautiful because it's not finished yet, but I think it's beautiful. My husband does some like woodworking on the side, and he made me this DM screen particularly because when it comes to initiative, I like a very dynamic initiative tracker where I can move things around, and they have like magnets on them and stuff. So he made me this DM screen, which I'm going to show off. And it's like right now, it just looks like a bunch of wood. That's the back side.
On the back, it's blocking your audio a little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But okay. Well, anyway, the back side has these hooks that kind of fall off, but that's where I put the iPad. So I have a visual for my players. But then, okay, if you guys can see these little initiative trackers here, they're on little magnets so that I can kind of like, and I like, these are just made with cardboard and paper, but like it has the character's name and just a little picture. So
nice.
I have them all up here and I can move them around. Here's my, NPC 1. I have a little color coded thing so I know who that belongs to. DM 1, I have DM 2, DM 3. If I have multiple monsters on there, I have a layer action, little tab, but they're all just magnetic, so I can, pick up
Shift
and move
them
them.
Around.
But then what's great is on the back side, which I'm not going to show you because apparently this thing is so big that it's blocking my audio, is that on the back side, because everything's all magnetic, I have my own information on the back side of like, what their passive perception is, and all my little homebrew rules and things like that I can move around. So it's very customized. So this is part of my DM prep because whatever they're doing, like right now, I loved the fact that we're going into the mountains. We're doing this whole side thing that my characters decided to just do up and do without me thinking about prepping it. And so I was like, oh no, I need a map of this area. And so I just quickly put the map up with magnets. Boom, it's on my DM screen now. So yeah, that's part of my prep. I also will. Oh man, my brain just like totally blanked out. Okay, so when it comes to my in-person games, I always have terrain that I've made or what have you. I have my map set up. I have encounters set up for like if they do this or this. Now, granted, as a rule for any DM, you can prepare for everything, but you need to prepare for the fact that they will do something you didn't prepare for. So I have a million tabs open for different generators, like, NPC generators, a town generator, just a name generator of like place names and castle keeps and things like that, like names for everything. Names
are super important.
And then I would say once you get to know your players a little bit better, you'll start having specific things that you have to prep for. Like, I have a player who likes to pickpocket all the time. And it's like just to have a D100 table of like random things that are in people's pockets. Yeah. And it got to the point, I remember the first time that she did it, I was so like flabbergasted. And I think
I'm not going through that again.
Yeah, so I have this. This was before I had any kind of tabs and online generators, but I have this little random tables book that I got. And so luckily there was like, I think something about things that are in pockets. And I wasn't paying attention to what it was. And so I read like a cat tail. And this person was like a merfolk kind of person. And she was pickpocketing them, and they pull out a cat tail, and then somehow she got really confused about it and was like started doing investigating, like, why did she have a cat tail? And I had to on the fly come up with this idea about why merfolk are totally obsessed with cat tails, and that everybody has one. It's like a good luck charm, like a rabbit's foot.
Right.
It was so stupid. Makes sense. So now I have things prepared for when this person pickpockets, and they're not going to be some off the wall thing that I now have to create a whole backstory for, like cat tails and merfolk. But anyway, and then the other things, I have a bunch of these old books, like old video game books, Morrowind, any of those types of games. I mean, cool. I still keep them, and then they have a million quests in them, people's names, factions, things like that I'm like, already done. I got it.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think if that's all I do to prepare. Oh, I also like to prepare music because I want to know, like, okay, we're going to the Goliath area, so this area has this type of music. It's very like tribal-y kind of music. And so I'll make sure I have like tribal music that's like calm for exploration, but then I also have like a high speed one for if there's a chase, but then I also have like a very heavy deep one with like battle drums in case they get into a battle. Like, so I like to prepare moods. Yeah. And then lots of props. We've talked about props and handouts, lots and lots of props for me.
Yes.
So
wow, I love your DM screen. That's fantastic. You should totally pass on my sincere impressedness to your husband for making that. It's awesome.
Thank you. I'll have to post pictures because that probably really didn't do it justice, just passing it through like that.
Do you have an Instagram?
I do, but really it's named for my dog because I'm obsessed with my dog.
Well, you should get an Instagram for your YouTube channel and your presence.
No, I have an Instagram for Purdy Nerdy, yes, but and I will share it on Purdy Nerdy. That makes more sense than sharing it on my dog channel.
yeah, I would say that's probably a good idea.
All right. Wow. So what about you?
Okay, well, I'll show you. How about that?
All right. Okay. So do I need to do the screen share thing?
Do the screen share thing. Screen share thing. All right. So tell me when you're up, because while we're screen sharing, I won't be able to see the Facebook feed. Well, actually, I might be able to move it.
All right. It should be up. Are you ready?
Should be up. Okay. Bring it on.
All righty. Here we go. So everybody, you should be seeing Russell's screen and still hearing us.
All right.
This is the first time we've done this.
Can you still hear us? Somebody say something in the chat if you can still hear us. All right. So what you're looking at right now is Incarnate, and you'll notice that along the top of the screen there are a whole shit ton of what look like tabs, but they are in fact not tabs. They are instead tab groups. You will see they pop open and close like such. Now, inside these tab groups, I have one tab that's called RKDM, and inside that we have this is my Google Documents folder. So I have a whole bunch of shit in here. Now, normally I won't have anything in the search bar, and it will come up with just the latest stuff that I've been using and doing. Can you still hear us?
Yes, Upright Man says he can hear us, and Avery says, spoiler warning, I recognize those steps.
You recognize those steps. Hilarious.
Okay.
Right. Well, that's because they're from Incarnate, and Incarnate only has so many types of stairs. So, and that happens to be my favorite one, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so I have here a document which is a spreadsheet in Google Docs where I have links to many of the important documents that I have made that I use. And this by far does not give us all of them. In fact, I don't actually use this document as much these days because I've just searched for them, because there's becoming so many documents that I just can't fucking be fucked spending an hour adding links into this document. But I do always have this document open, and it will take me to all these other documents that I've created that are useful to me. And you'll notice that there's more tabs down the bottom. So for Vampire the Masquerade, I've got a bunch of tabs. For Dragonlance, I haven't done anything yet. I have a bunch of names here just because wherever I am on whichever tab I'm on, it's almost always going to happen that I'm going to need a name and I'm on the wrong tab, and I need one place where I know there's some names. Okay, so I can just pull some names out of my ass at quick notice. Now, along the top here, I've got like NPC profile. This is the gangs of Vaingate. You'll notice along the bottom are a bunch of different tabs with more information on these gangs and so on and so forth. So that's that. The city of Vaingate, I've got all of the various houses, notes on the guards, the military, various factions, districts. Under the districts, we have all sorts of shit in terms of tabs here. Let's pull that up a bit so we can see it. Anyway, that goes on and on. Inside the walls, various other districts.
Upright Man says Foundry VTT makes all this painless, as well as player notes and all that, and you can have notes at a place.
Yeah, and I'm a cheap fucker, and I'm not paying them. So there's that. But if someone wants to donate money to my Patreon and let me do that, then I'm totally into it. But but this is just using Google Docs, which is entirely searchable, of course.
Right.
So, and also Google Docs will soon be integrated with ChatGPT. So it kind of is, but it's not very reliable right now. So we'll see.
Oh,
so then I should have on the top.
Sorry, I'll get back to it. But I just realized as you're going through all this stuff that you're showing for DM prep that I could have totally done a thing on World Anvil, because that's where all my stuff is on. But maybe we'll do that another time.
Right, for sure. Okay, so then I've got my player characters along the top, and here in a tab that's called PCs. So when I want to have access to all my player characters. So, I mean, especially because one of my players, Barry, is quite blind. And so I usually have to roll for him. So I need to have his character sheet open, and having everybody's character sheet gives me a chance to quickly review what they've got. And if I suspect that somebody's accidentally or on purpose doing something that's a bit weird, I can go and check on their character sheet, open up their spells and go, is that really how Booming Blade works?
Yeah, I do that too. I have all my characters' tabs open as well, usually because they have questions, and it's just so much easier to figure out how their thing works.
Exactly. So here's Incarnate, which is for making maps. And in here, I've got, this is a map I've just been working on recently. I'll have a look at some of the other maps I've been making. I've been making a lot of battle maps recently, but also have world maps like this one, which is going to load. So yeah, I use all of these different tabs all at the same time. And it's very useful. Now, bearing in mind that I'm also usually streaming. So I would have another 2 or 3 tab folders as well that just relate to streaming. For example, Twitch and Streamlabs and so on, all going on. Right, so here's the world map. And using this, what's fantastic is I know that the player characters are heading into an area down here, for example. And I want to make another map from that. I can just resize that map, grab a section of it, and spit it out. I'm not going to do that because I've already done it, and I have those maps all hidden away up in here. So you can see there's quite a few maps I've been working on. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of it. But the most important thing for me really is being able to just quickly type in here and say, okay, they're going to come across the Barakyle envoy. So type that in, and we have various documents that spit out. There's a map of the Barakyle envoy's complex in Vaingate and the Citadel of Karkanos. We have huge amounts of notes over here that describe everything from, how they work and who they work with, to their hierarchies and rulerships and councils and so on and so forth. The quest for the Book of Israel, their Inquisition and the goals and objectives of the Inquisition, that's all in there. So, useful stuff like that. So some sort of database really is what you need.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably key because I see a lot of DMs or new DMs, posting about that in forums about like, how do you keep all this straight and how do you organize it all? I've seen people use OneNote. People use Google Docs, and just like what you're doing and all the various tabs. I use World Anvil, which, if you're not familiar, is kind of like creating your own wiki with like links that connect to other documents within World Anvil. So it's the same similar, process. A database. That's the best way to describe it.
Pull up this. This is Stable Diffusion XL. This is Clip Drop. A lot of the new AI art generators use this underlying architecture, just spits out NPCs. You can make an NPC in 5 seconds, He looks like, here we come, any second now. There you go. There's your Goblin Shaman leader or various versions. Bang, it's that simple. And these are useful things. This is potentially the Winter Queen. I was doing these this morning. So, kind of cool. There you go. So there's lots of things you can do. Also, you'll find that this is a cunning plan. You go into Incarnate and you make a map that looks something like, where's the good one? Let me see, where did I put it? Right, so this map here is quite a cool map because it's fairly simple and it doesn't have a lot on it. And what I found is I can take that into something like Clip Drop, which has a tool where you can, where's it gone? Image upscaler. Hang on, we'll go to the main page. Where'd it go? Uncrop, right? So you take a map into here. Where's my shit?
Where's my shit? Are you talking about maps right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I figured I'd fill the silence, and for DM prep, you could do Theater of the Mind, which is like just prepare detailed descriptions. You don't need a map for it, but just have a detailed which there are description generators online. I have found them recently and I love them, aside from ChatGPT, but now you've got ChatGPT, so you've got that.
Right.
And then,
so I'm loading up a map in here, right? Okay, so you can see that. And I'm going to make it quite small in the picture. And I'm going to get Stable Diffusion to build the rest of the fucking map.
That's cool.
And I don't know how well it's going to work, but sometimes I've had some good success with that. So that's sort of taken the theme of what I've already done and just added a bunch of shit to it. And we get different versions of it. That's not cool. A bad one.
Yeah.
So that's quite a good way to pull things out of your ass if you need to.
Yeah, especially, if you prepare a map and they're like, oh, but now we want to go here. And you're like, oh, I wasn't prepared for you to go here. Well, now you can do this.
Exactly. And so along the top here, you'll see that all of these tabs, right? So this is just for each campaign has its own tab. Now I use Roll20. So as you can see here, the great thing about Roll20 is that you can put hexes on it, and every hex has a number. So that's quite handy. And you can do things like measure distances from Dagdagiel all the way to, let's see, Dagdagiel to Vain Gate is 3,000 miles. Dun, 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 dun. And you can plot a route by going doop, ba-doop, 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 ba-doop. And that's your distance, 3,400 miles to Dagdagiel from Vain Gate. So, that's kind of fun.
And then going back to our travel episode, now you can figure out how you want to run those sessions, knowing how long they will be traveling.
Right. This is a session I ran last night using a map that I made a few days ago, where they fought some trolls. And, you have various layers on your map where you've got your GM's layer, your tokens layer, your map layer, and so on. And you can bring creatures back and forth. Now, what you do have to do as far as prep is concerned is you have to make sure you have access to all of those things. So, you have to have somewhere in here all of your tokens and stuff prepared before you start.
Set your fog of war, all that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Fog of war, making sure that you've set up your dynamic lighting and that every character has got the correct vision for that character and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, I guess that's kind of the overall general idea of prep as far as a session is concerned. When it gets more complicated, when you start talking about more general things like themes and moods and tones and overarching character arcs and all of that kind of fun stuff. So I see Lotharian is still in here for some reason. He's obviously just didn't want to leave. He's just living it.
He's just living there.
Yeah. Interesting. So now
so
as far as
go ahead.
Beyond is concerned, sorry, I guess this is probably my last little thing here. I have tabs for encounters. So this is my Barakyle envoy encounter. I'll close that. Then we have some Driders over here. These are just random encounters. Don't take these as anything that I'm actually going to run anytime soon, or probably have already run them. We have Chamber 1. I might have a tab that just says Chamber 1. And inside that encounter is some Drow slavers. Inside Chamber 2 is some other stuff. Now, if you're using Roll20, you can simplify this process vastly. And that can be a lot easier because you can just drag and drop stuff onto the map. It's got the encounter builder all in there. It all just works very seamlessly within Roll20. I just don't like Roll20, and I have a subscription for D&D Beyond. So, and I get Roll20 for free from my job. So
that takes care of what Upright Man said. You use Roll20. I thought you said you were cheap.
Yeah. Well, I don't pay for it. Yeah. I don't pay for Roll20, so there's that.
That covers
D&D Beyond. There's a thing called above. Well, it's D&D above VTT. So you've got above and beyond, and the above VTT plugs in perfectly into D&D Beyond, and it works like Roll20, but better than Roll20, and it only runs D&D 5e, so it's very simple, cut down, and streamlined, which I love. And that's free, and it's just a plugin built by the makers of D&D Beyond. So I recommend that also. I guess the final thing, and I guess we can close this whole window now. We've gone through all of these tabs and stuff.
Wait, close it now or wait until you're done with your final thing?
Yeah, that was it. The last thing I want to say, I can say it to the camera, really, to talk about the differences between preparing for a homebrew.
You are frozen.
I'm frozen. Look at that.
Let's see.
I'm making faces.
What's going on here? Hide on stream.
Oh no, it's at my end apparently.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yep, I'll work on fixing that while I'm talking.
Okay.
But okay, so I run most of my games in the world of Sidariel, which you've kind of just had a bit of a preview of. Now, typically there might be cases where you're running a game that's set in a actual campaign setting, like Dragonlance or something like that, or you're running a module. Preparing for a module is very different to preparing for your own homebrew campaign. Obviously, there's a big difference. So, how you think about that. How would you prepare for a homebrew thing versus a a campaign module? I'm going to ask you that while I fuck around with my camera.
Well, see, you could totally do that, but I have never run the closest thing I've run to a module was I did try to run the Mines of Fendal, blah blah blah, whatever that I can. Yeah, that I just for my son and his friend for like one night when he had a sleepover, but they never got through it because they were very young and got sidetracked and played video games instead. But but yeah, so I don't run modules. I love homebrew. So yeah. And I'm sorry if you haven't seen this yet, but I'm dying laughing because while your face was stuck, Upright Man said, "Oh, it's his vampire face." And then Avery said, "You made too many faces and it stuck that way." And I couldn't, sorry, I was laughing. Anyway. All right. So we've talked about what we do. And honestly, I could probably tell you that what we've talked about is probably not even the half of it. That is the very quick and dirty because we've got a show to run. This is what we do. But let's get into the whole list of what DMs can do to prepare. Number 1, storyline and plot, because you were talking about modules, right? So if you're running a module, get yourself familiar with that module, reread it, especially the section that you're going to run that night so that you don't have to, all of a sudden get caught up and go, and I don't remember what's going to happen and now I got to find it. Or like Russell said, be prepared that if you don't remember, where do you find it? Find it quickly. How do you find it quickly? Put a tab on it or something like that. Be prepared. If it's homebrew, see, this is why I do homebrew, because for me, it's in my brain. So I don't necessarily have to do things there you are. I don't necessarily have to do things to remember anything about my world because it's my world. It's already in my brain. There's a few things, usually the very detailed minutia of things that I need to look up. But otherwise, that's why I homebrew. And then have backup plans because you're running a session. You okay, Russell?
I'm just checking to see if I was frozen again, but it turns out I was just sitting really still.
You were. And then I would say have backup plans, right? Because I'll go, okay, I'm trying to think of a good example here. So my players were in a town that I described as if you mashed Las Vegas and Greece together, this is what you get. It's this huge city that's got a ton of nightlife, but it's got all the elegance of Greece, right? And they went to an area that was I thought for sure they're going to play all the gambling games. They're going to go into the fighting pit. They're going to do all this fun stuff. And so I had prepped a lot of that. And that's when I learned as a DM that you have to prepare for the unprepared because they didn't do any of the things that I thought they would be interested. They completely bypassed. They looked into that bar and went, yeah, nah. And then I think they did 1 or 2 things in there and then they turned around and did something else completely. So all of a sudden I was like, well, if they're not going to do that and they're not going to do the fighting pit, what's the encounter for today? Because I like to try to make sure that it's not, at least for my games, I'd like to make sure that they have some kind of fight or encounter and then the rest is role play. So if it's not going to be the bar fight, crap, what's it going to be? And I had to come up with something on the fly. So backup plans, I would say if this is your encounter, think about the if, then, this, that. If they do this, then this will happen. But if they don't do that, what happens? Think about it. Be prepared for that.
Yeah.
NPCs, which nowadays, you just have a tab open, there's an NPC generator, but now it's got descriptions, it's got pictures like what you showed, you've got names, you've got what their deity they follow, what they're wearing, all of that stuff. So I just have a tab open for an NPC generator because that's bound to happen. They're going to come up and say, what's this lady's name? Well,
right.
It's this. We already talked about maps and locations. Have descriptions prepared if you're doing theater of the mind. Have maps handy if you're going to do maps. Prepare a list of nearby potentially relevant important locations or dungeons or cities or landmarks.
So that's an interesting point. That is an interesting point because I'm just going to also add to that is that sometimes you don't have to do as much preparation as you think you do because let's say you're there's town A and there's town B and there's town C. Which town do you want to go to? But the players don't need to know that actually the first town that they go to is going to be the same town. It doesn't matter which direction they go or which town they choose. They're all the same town. The prep that you've done is not suddenly irrelevant. You don't have to go away and generate a whole new town because they decided to go to a different place.
Right.
It only matters when they decide to go to the second town.
Right.
So ultimately, you're buying yourself time. You're not actually solving the problem entirely, but that's what you need to know. That's a useful technique.
Yeah, and I am going to promote a Matt Colville episode, which I think he just posted. It was a few months ago, but it was prepping the game and how it's easy and stuff like that. But he mentioned, and I'm not going to explain it as eloquently as he does, but he basically goes through the same concept of like, you know what? You just need to prep like this very minimum thing, and like you don't even need to know why these kids are missing from this village, because your players are probably going to go, I wonder if it's this, or I wonder if it's this, and one idea that they shoot out is going to be a great idea, and you're going to go, yeah, that's why. Yes. And now you start leading into that, so you don't even have to prep everything.
Sometimes the best preparation is to create a mystery or a problem that you don't even know the answer to, and then see what comes of it. Because somewhere along the trail, they're going to keep looking for the answer until something plausible begins to emerge from the story that it unfolds, and then that becomes the story, and that becomes the reason or the thing, and when you're improvising, that's super useful. Not always your best work, to be fair, I personally find that, yes, I can go into a game without having done any preparation at all, and it can be fun and great and wonderful. Mm-hmm. Usually it'll be okay, but if I go into
stuck again.
Oh, fucking hell. But if I go into the game...
Oh, no, you're not you're unstuck. Great.
If I go into the game having done some prep, then all of my powers of improvisation are now freed up to use to take that to a new level, as opposed to barely meeting minimum requirements.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's very noticeable to me when I can tell how much I've prepped and how much I haven't prepped. Because when I have those sessions where I haven't prepped as much, it's a struggle to come up with some of those things. You're right. Like my brain is now allocated to other things. Yeah. Whereas if I have a lot of that prepped, then now I can really be free. So, yeah.
You can explore it a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, I find that, to be fair, as I said, I stream a lot of games, and the problem with that is that takes up a lot of mental bandwidth, just streaming. I mean, as you can see, we're streaming now, and it's that half of your mind, because you're running the stream, half of your mind is taken up, or half of your RAM is being used just keeping the stream running and worrying about all the technical shit. Mm-hmm. And it makes it that much harder to actually DM or present or whatever you're doing. So, bear that in mind. If you are planning on streaming anything, it's going to be much harder than just DMing.
Yes. Okay, so let's see. I love that Upright Man said, I'm too OCD to not know the answer. I will tell you, I thought that way too in the beginning, because I am anal when it comes to planning. But I have definitely learned, for me anyway, and I think it's just because I have a very steady party. So maybe it's because I've learned them that I know exactly how much I need to prep for now, and what I don't need to prep.
The other thing there regarding prep in that respect, you can sit down for 2 hours and do a bunch of prep that can cover you for 3 sessions. You don't have to you don't have to prep each session as much. You still have to do a little bit of prep for each session. You got to get your shit out and open up your tabs or whatever. But if you've sat down and you've spent some time preparing the story arc already, you know what the big picture is, and you've broken that down. Now you're only prepping much smaller chunks of information.
Yeah. So this is where, I plan for my encounter, which I think is going to be the encounter they're going to do, but I still always have at least 1 or 2 backup encounters for that. Like, what if they don't do this thing that I think they're going to do? Then this is going to happen. So then this is what the encounter would look like. Okay. So I think through a few scenarios, because I like to make my terrain. That's why. So I have to plan because I want to have that terrain prepared. I I mean, I have a draw, like one of those, the maps that you can draw on, and I have one of those, and it works. But for me, that's not fun. And maybe my players don't care, but for me, that's fun to be like, ta-da, look at this thing I made for you. Like,
Right.
so,
That's awesome.
so anyway, so that's, I plan for a variety of encounters or scenarios or what have you.
I must admit, I generally draw my maps on the fly during live sessions. I might have a plan, but I still kind of just draw it. I don't generally plan terrain,
right.
Like you do. So I really envy that. That's great. That's a great thing to do.
I mean, it's a catch-22 because like I said, I've prepared terrain now that I'm sitting on for months. Yeah, and they may never go there. So I don't know. Okay, so plan a few monster stat blocks. I think we talked about with scaling and homebrewing monsters, like
yes.
I like the idea of doing encounters in waves, and I think Matt Colville also talked about this. But plan for, they're gonna fight, you had Driders up, right? They're gonna fight 2 Driders, but if that looks like maybe in the first encounter or the first round or 2 that like they're just wiping the floor with these things, then you need to have a couple other monsters that make sense, that would go along with Driders or this area that they're in, that can now show up in the second round or third round to make the encounter harder. So have some monster stat blocks on hand.
And also time is a factor too, because you need to be able to pace the story. And so having extra encounters prepped, as I said, I'm streaming and I get to like 30 minutes before the end of the stream and the story's kind of flagging a little bit and they've done the thing that I had planned a little bit too quickly. I'll throw an encounter there, and so thus having those encounters prepared are useful.
Yeah.
And as you talk about waves too, like last night we had a well and I had trolls climbing out of the well in waves. So part of it is also so you can test out how they're going to deal with a monster. So you throw one of them at them. And then you throw 2 of them at them, and then you throw a third one at them. And then now, so in the first couple of rounds, they're only fighting 1 troll. In the second, third, fourth round, they're fighting 2 or 3 trolls. And it kind of gets bigger and worse, depending on how they're doing. Because if they're being overwhelmed, you don't want to throw in the 4th, 5th, 6th troll. If they're sucking, if they're getting their asses kicked, or their dice are just, 2 of the players have been unconscious twice in the first round from the first troll. Well, maybe you want to pull back a little bit. So
don't send in those extra trolls.
Right.
Yeah. Loot and rewards.
That's hard.
I'm the worst at, because I always forget to prep it. I don't want to say always, but there are a lot of times I forget to think about, I've planned this really cool encounter. Now, what kind of loot would they find here that makes sense? Because there are online loot generators and I do use them a lot, but I feel like I have to keep cycling through them because I'm like, nope, they wouldn't get that. Nope, that wouldn't be there. So I should be doing more to prep loot and rewards.
So
I just don't all the time.
On that point, actually, I'm going to share something with you. Sorry, I was trying to share my screen.
Oh, you want me to share your screen again?
Yeah, here we go.
Okay. And
so
hold on 1 second. There we go.
Avery, look away, my friend. Look away, or don't. I don't really care because it's not.
Oh,
it's not
kind
like
of.
You're gonna.
Yeah. Okay.
Not like you're going to get any of this shit anytime soon, but. Okay, so this is some of my notes on the Barrack Isle Envoy, and I've made a page for treasure, and I've gone into ChatGPT and built a bunch of treasure for them. All sorts of stuff, which I've just made for these characters, for these NPCs. And the idea is that I can come into this page anytime they kill some wizards of the Barrack Isle Envoy, and they may carry these items. These are some of the obvious things that they tend to always carry, and then some of this other stuff is more specialized. And having some sort of treasure table for different types of creatures, I think, is important. You can stop sharing that now if you want.
Okay.
I'll back over here. So, just having tables.
Avery, you can look now.
You can look now. With having some sort of random table or something that you can pick and choose from for different types of creatures in your world or different locations in your world is super useful. Because if you don't give out all of it on the first go, you can give it out in dribs and drabs over a period of 10 encounters or 10 scenes or something like that.
Right.
Hell no, I've just got somebody at the door.
Yeah, no problem. And then I was going to say, I also do like to keep in mind and try to keep mental track of the loot that I do give the party because, we have
2 minutes.
No problem. We have a lot of magic users in the party that I run for, and just a few like melee. I have one melee and like one rogue, pretty much, and the rest are mostly magic casters. So I have to keep track of what kind of loot I'm giving them that's magical, and make sure that I'm also including something that the rogue can use, something that the gunslinger can use, so that it doesn't always feel like it's always going to the magic users, So bear that in mind, your party, what kind of loot they would want, or even kind of tailoring some of the loot so that it's specific to like their background, has some kind of a history, because then they're really invested in like why they got this loot. So just have that kind of stuff prepared. And on that note, magic shop inventories, again, it's part of loot. It's part of my brain just doesn't ever want to think about it, but prepare a list, because it's bound to happen. They're going to go to a city and they're going to go, well, let's head to the magic shop. What does the magic shop have available? And I'm like, and then I have to quickly go onto random generators and do the same thing where it's like, nope. Oh, but they would have that and it would cost this. And so just have some of that prepared, I think, would be helpful. And then you wouldn't be like me.
I'm back.
Okay, cool.
Sorry about that.
No problem. All I did was talk about loot and having magic shop inventories ready.
Aha.
Yeah. Rule books and references, always nice to have on hand, whether it's D&D Beyond or you have your books, or people have like those the cards that have like, here's all my druid spells and things like that.
A bunch of those up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Or you can have tabs open on your computer. Have all that stuff there.
Yeah. One of my live games that I go to, they provide a laptop for me. So when I turn up, I log in through my Google account, and I don't have to, I just use my Google account. I've got all my tabs already there because Google synchronized shit.
Yeah.
Bloody blah, and I just open up everything there, and it's the same as it is at home, and so on, and just go on business as usual.
Okay, so Upright Man says, I've never played with a magic shop, which I get, because some people really don't like to have like high magic societies, or which the one that I'm running is a high magic society. But yes, yeah, I do see the appeal to not having high magic societies. But even in that case, then you still would maybe want to have inventory prepared for like any shop that they go into, or just having a list of shop names even for like, they're going into this city, then you need to have a list of various shops ready, or smithies, or
Yep. Markets, even different markets, night markets, different districts have different types of shops and things. The Dwarven district in Vaingate and Sidariel and Thrasis, there's a lot of family-owned Dwarven forges and what have you. With some of them have names and they specialize in different things, and they have apprentices and they have names, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That type of stuff.
So now our props and handouts episode, I think, was one of the best episodes we've had for a while, not for a while, but recently. So I'm just going to tell everybody, you guys need to go back and watch, if you haven't, our props and handouts episode, because if you have any props and handouts, which I hope you do because they're fun, you definitely want to have those prepared for your session, whether it's online, have it ready to go, pop up on your screen, or get ready to text it to somebody, anything that you're going to pop out at your table. Sound and music, I've already talked about, like that's, I think, part of having props and immersion and things like that. Notes, session notes. I'm also very bad at this because I don't want to say I'm bad at it. I'm not consistent. It depends on how the session is going. if the sessions are like very heavy and involved, I tend to get sidetracked and I forget to take notes. And then the next day I'm like, oh no. And I'm trying to piece everything together, because if I don't do it soon, it's gone. It just goes.
Right.
So
It's
prepare
helpful.
a way to take notes.
This is something that players can really help with too. Often, well, I was in one campaign as a player a long time ago where one of the players kept a blog for the whole campaign, and every session they would summarize in the blog, and the group would get a link to that blog. So we'd go into the session, and the first thing you could do if you couldn't remember what was going on, you could just log into the blog and read what happened last session, and that's what I'm planning to do with my chat GPT thing, is to build those little logs that can be kept in a blog or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Which really helps for just knowing where you left off, man, is really important.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because I get that many people play weekly or bi-weekly, but I don't know. In the real world, like, I have never met a person in person or that does in-person games that plays weekly. That's just, especially when you're an adult, like, or at least when you're my age. I mean, you could be 20 and you're an adult, but you might have the bandwidth to be able to play weekly. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But
well, yeah, I run a lot of weekly games.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, you're a paid DM. That's your job. But yeah, so find a way to take notes or record the session or whatever, so that you can keep track of everything.
Yeah, one thing I find useful oftentimes is to go back and I will watch the last 5 minutes of the last session, at least the last 5 minutes, if not the last 30 minutes, to just sort of remember the mood and tone that you'd set, and have all of that memory back in loaded up in your RAM, so you're ready to, reset the scene, as it were. Another thing that's useful as a DM is to get a thesaurus, right? It doesn't matter whether it's online or what have you, but just type in, what are some words relating to tombs, right? Get some descriptive terms that you can use. Get a bunch of words that will, dusty, ancient, you fill in the blanks. All of those words that you can throw into your description to help build a picture. And don't just think about visuals, think about audio stuff. Smells are really important. Little creatures, insects and things, who inhabits this place, that type of stuff. When you're talking about architecture and places and locations, very rarely are creatures just, they set up shop, they built this place and now they live there. That maybe happens in cities a bit, but even then, they probably aren't the first residents of this particular location. So there's going to be leftover things from the past that are still there, that you can add to the texture of the world from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. And then, make sure you have your dice, or if you roll online, I'm sure you have that already. I mean, you know what I love? That you can just Google, you can just type it into Google search and it'll roll a 1d20 or whatever. So you really don't have an excuse to not have dice.
Right. There's no excuses for not having dice. And there's many a dice goblin out there that has too many dice. But, hey.
I don't know who you're talking about at all. Let's see. Oh, yes. Charge cords. I was going to say, this is for me because I'm in person, but I always have to make sure I have charge cords under the table, because everybody's bringing their laptops and their iPads and what have you. So
power.
Yeah, having power at the table.
Yeah.
And then, key, aside from all of this, we've talked about it already, but prepare for the unexpected. And I don't even know how, that's something I feel like no matter how much we say it, until you experience it, you won't really understand what it means to prepare for the unexpected.
Right.
So, right? I don't know how else to.
Well, look, this is kind of another way of preparing that I'm going to sort of venture into, and that is sometimes when I'm on my way to a game where I'm preparing for a game, I will think about, instead of what's the plot, what's the story, I think of who's an NPC that I want to role play. right? And I'll pull up an NPC out of my brain, out of the world or the location that they're in, whether it's a city or what have you, and say, I want to play this character. I'm going to play this character in this session. And you go into it with that character, and you use that character to either antagonize the plot or otherwise provide some kind of hook to it, or reveal something about themes and moods and so on. And so going into it, just knowing who that NPC is. And so often it might be a case of voice warm-ups, role play that character by yourself, or several characters. Make sure that your primary characters in the campaign, your main NPCs that the players are likely to come across, including generic ones like guards, you have something to offer there. They've got something interesting has happened to them on this day. Think of things like that. Like that you run into a general person. Well, it so happens that the other day there was a dragon flew over the city, and everyone's going, oh my God, there was a dragon. Was it a silver dragon or a white dragon? We don't know, but there's all these rumors going around. So adding this kind of texture into small interactions. Even shopkeepers, they have lives. They experience stuff outside of just who they are.
Yeah.
As
I think you hit on what I wanted to say, but I was getting all worked up about it. Was like, kind of improv. Prepare to improv, and whatever that means to you as a DM, because I think for me, I have to get out of my DM head and be in the head of the NPC, or be in the head, whoever they're interacting with, that I have to make something up on the fly. That's improv. And that is like, me personally, I have to run myself through kind of some mental exercises beforehand so that I know, or I have to run myself through, okay, this city is in this location. This city would be motivated by this, and this. So any one person in that city would think that these things, like I just have to run through a list in my brain to prepare for those eventualities. So I think that's, aside from all this prep that we're telling you guys to do, have tabs open for all the things that you think might come up. And worst case scenario, like you don't have the answer, right? As a DM, I've had to do look, I don't have that answer right now. They're asking about like, how long would it take to get from here to here? Like you said, like you've got Roll20 up, but I don't have that up. And so I'll have to kind of estimate it and then say, okay, when the game's over, I will look at this harder, and then I will text you guys with the hard answer. But for here, I'm going to tell you it's about 2.5 weeks. Like,
and the thing is too that, like, I mean, I've been running this particular campaign in Sidariel for a while now, and a few campaigns in Sidariel on and off over like 5 years. I've been running games in this world. I've only just made those maps.
Yeah.
And I got by without them. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to have the whole world prepared before you start. You can start with, you can go the Gary Gygax route and start with one town and develop that town, and then work outwards. Maybe not even outwards. You might just work with whatever the players do and develop around them as you go. Or you can work from the top down, which I personally prefer, but there's kind of a place where you can let those two systems meet in the middle.
Yes. Yeah. That's, I think, what I want the message to be at the end of this show, because I think that there's so many people. I see so many people posting online about, I want a DM, but I'm so scared and I don't know what to prepare and all this stuff. And like, that's what I want people to take away, is that yes, preparation is great. And the more you prepare, probably the better. But
knowing what to prepare.
And maybe that's what it is. You need to know what to prepare, but just prepare the minimum of what you need, which is you need a setting, you need to have something that's going to happen maybe, and like have a monster stat block ready, and then past that, like, you can make it all up on the fly and then keep track of it and then build off of it. And then next thing you know, you've got a whole world. But yeah, I want people to not be afraid to start.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, getting started, that's the hard part. And to be fair, I think what you need the most in order to get started is 2 or 3 friends who aren't going to hold you awfully accountable. They're going to play along with you and make your life easy. They're not going to fight you at every turn. They're not going to be like constantly rules lawyering you and being a pain in the ass.
Right.
Although to be fair, that can work for you because, as I said earlier, you can learn a lot from other players about the rules.
Right.
So if you don't know the rules and you're feeling scared because you don't know the rules, well, here's an idea. Don't play D&D. Make up a game.
Right.
Role play without rules. I know it sounds ludicrous.
Mind blown.
Mind blown. You do not have to pay money for a role playing game. You can make it up yourself. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But if you want to play a role playing game with lots of other people, then you probably have to play D&D because it's the only one anybody's ever even heard of.
Yes. And okay, I'm going to suggest one more thing because I see a lot of this too. So there's baby DMs who want to DM. And I did this, right? I DM'd my son because that was the least intimidating option, right? But I would say there's so many people who are like, oh, well, the only people I know is like my DM wants to play in my game. And that's so terrifying. And, but I never hear a lot of them talking about like that they had a conversation with the DM, because so many people I know, DMs I know, they would love to sit in a game and they want to watch you as a baby DM grow. And I understand that it's intimidating to have them at your table, but all we want is for you guys to become one of us. Like so I can see how if you have a DM who you think will be like, oh, you're doing this wrong, and blah, 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 then maybe don't have them at your or have a conversation with them. But I think the majority of us are so supportive, and we want you to do the thing. So do the thing, and don't be try it.
Try really hard not to micromanage your life.
Right. Have a conversation.
But we do have to have that conversation, and it's a fair conversation to have, because it's easy if you've done something for a long time to sit back and go, you could improve this with blah blah blah, but really there's no need for that.
Yeah. So I know our show ran a little bit long. I am going to scrap the weekly world building for this time. I might throw it in next week. We'll see if it'll fit into whatever topic that we decide. But it's really basically what I was going to walk everyone through. And maybe this is homework for you guys. Okay. Basically, all I did was you Google search for a free battle map or online map or whatever you want to go. Or if you go to like Patreon, there's a lot of them that make maps, and they'll have like a free version that you can download. Any map, anything, where you can draw it, you can make it. And then all you got to do is take that map and then just create an encounter by walking through kind of like, I guess my homework would be watch that Matt Colville episode where he basically looked at a map and was like, all right, look, there's a path here. Oh, look, there's some broken branches. Why are there broken branches? Let's say there's broken branches because trolls walked through here. Like I'm making this all up right now too. But that's basically what I was going to do and I want you guys to do this. Pull up a free map, look at the map, come up with a story for the map that makes sense for like what kind of encounter you want to have. There's a list of encounters that I keep on my DM screen, which is there's the fetch, like you want your players to go fetch something. You want your players to go deliver something. You want your players to protect something, destroy something, go investigate something, negotiate with someone or something, survive, which is usually like some kind of a skill challenge, survive something, attain something, which is different than fetching, right? Like I want you to go into this town and I need you to become their, like, you need to be their, what's the word I'm thinking of? Their champion, become their champions and have them laud you all over here because I need you to do this and get in close with them. And, so attain something.
I'd like to add something to that list I think is important.
Sure.
And I think it works with everything that you've just said, but I want my players to learn something.
Okay. Learn something. Yeah.
Right. So whether it's learn something about the world or something about themselves or something about how to play, whatever that is, or it could be all of those or none of them, but learning something, they come away with it with some kind of character development.
Right.
That's my plan. And that totally works with all of the nuts and bolts stuff that you've just described.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Sometimes I have an encounter where it's really just about like the world lore, where something's going to happen and I want them to be a part of it so that they learn about this, lore in the world. So yeah, with those types of quests or types of adventures, take a look at your free map. Look at all the little minutiae and details, and then try to come up with some kind of an encounter. Like I said, okay, so there's broken wood and stuff. So trolls have walked through. So I'm going to make this I need to make this a protect encounter where they're going to be in a town, and I'm going to say this old lady needs to get from this town to this town, and they've heard about these troll encounters recently, or people have gone missing recently that have traveled this road, so this woman wants protection, whatever that may be. And you can have that all prepped, and then you've got one encounter already under your belt, and all you had to prepare, you've got your map, you have a few variations of stories, maybe some rumors, you've got your encounter, you've got your pull up your monster stat block. And I just did that in 10 minutes? Not really real time walking through a map, but so that was really going to be the world building exercise.
Have a theme in mind. I like to create themes that are some kind of examination of some kind of central question.
Mm-hmm.
So something like, the idea might be, what is mercy, or something like that, and then create a situation where the players have to really think about that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether they come to any conclusions. It's good if they do or not, doesn't really matter, but you've got something to structure everything around. And so then when you're creating encounters or NPCs or locations, you are hooking them onto this theme that you've created to start with. And this gives you a pyramid structure, if you like, a kind of hierarchy in terms of how you want to build something, and it all works together to form a cohesion or a cohesive story or narrative.
Yeah. That's actually a good point, especially if you're starting out with what we're calling, I guess, the Gygax method, where you're kind of like, you haven't built the whole world and you haven't built the whole arcing story all the way to the BBEG. Well, then at least if you have a theme, then you have something to hang your hat on for each encounter, so that it ties them together. I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the theme I have in Sidariel when I started building it was the return of the sacred feminine. That's the basic underlying theme of the world. And so everything in the world in some way relates to that, and more or less. I mean, at the end of the day, not everything can relate to that, because you want to also at the same time have a kind of realistic, naturalistic sense that has verisimilitude, and you feel like you're in an actual living world. But at the end of the day, the story and all of the big plot points are heading in that direction. And there's a lot of factions and organizations and NPCs that are going to reflect that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of patriarchies who are evil, and there's a lot of matriarchies that are either rising, rebelling, or powerful in their own right. That type of stuff. So that conflict is already there. Remember, drama is conflict. Conflict is drama.
Yeah. Don't go away from the drama. Go towards the drama.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So I think that's it for our show. We had a little bit of a cursed night, so we appreciate you guys sticking around. And
yes, indeed.
Boy, I'm gonna have to piece this one together like Frankenstein when it goes onto YouTube. So this will be fun. But look, guys, maybe it's because we need more subscribers. No, that's not true. But
it is true.
It is true.
What do you think?
If you guys like what we do, please, hit the like button, share, subscribe, all of that stuff. Yeah. Come check us out on all our social media platforms. Come join us on Discord. Yes.
Remember that we are collaborating here on Dungeon Studios, so like and subscribe to Dungeon Studios, because this is where we're doing the game. Right. Amber's got her own channel now, it's her own YouTube channel, so you need to go over there. It's pretty nerdy. On YouTube. I've just subscribed and added it to my list of featured channels.
Thank you.
So do the things. I've got my own YouTube channel as well. You can track that down, and Twitch. So come and find us, and we want to talk to you and stuff.
I
and
mean,
get
this is
involved.
what we do because we're passionate about it. So that means we pretty much will want to talk about it all the time.
Yeah, and if you have a channel of your own or something like that, and maybe you want to collaborate on something, there's possibilities.
Yes. We're just a bunch of creatives. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, folks, we're going to call it a night, and we will see you next week. I'm just going to end it here and say that these days can be fun days when you talk nerdy with friends. All right, folks. See you next week.
Adios.